The story kicks off under a beautiful, starry sky, bringing back memories of that meteor shower from the past. The boy's mother promises him that, when the time is right, a true miracle will surely find him. That shower of falling stars painted the night in such an incredible way, but, unfortunately, it also marked a sad goodbye. Ever since that moment in the field, Hoshizora admits he hasn't seen his mother again, not even once. Fast forward, and there he is, all alone on a secluded hill, setting up his telescope in the dead of night. 10 long years have passed since his mother vanished without a trace. Since that fateful day, the boy has been anxiously waiting for that space phenomenon to return. With his eye glued to the lens, he keeps holding on to the hope that the event will finally happen again. As he stares into the vast, dark void of space, the main character reveals that he still faithfully believes in a miracle. Suddenly, a hand appears out of nowhere, offering him an ice-cold sports drink. Seiyu praises her friend's hard work, mentioning that he came out here alone again and really should have called her. Surprised by the unexpected visit, the boy asks what she's doing there, warning her about how dangerous it is to be out at this hour. A bit sheepishly, the young girl reminds him that they're working on a crucial joint research project. They had promised to use this school project as a stepping stone to get into the same university together in the future. The student softly agrees with the project idea, but the mood from his memories quickly shifts. Back in the day, an arrogant bully burst into their club room, shouting to see if anyone was around. Her group started trashing their expensive equipment without a hint of remorse, slowly taking over their space. Before they could even realize the trouble they were in, the delinquents had already snatched a petty cash box for their research funds. To make matters even worse, the invaders turned their study spot into a hangout for the gang. Returning to the present, Hoshizora reassures Seiyu that he managed to change the password on their bank account. At that very instant, a flash suddenly streaks across the air, grabbing the main character's full attention. Thinking it's an actual shooting star, he quickly realizes that it's actually just the glowing cherry of a cigarette. Panicking at the sight of the danger, he tries to act fast, knowing the massive problem it will cause if it lands on their equipment. Unfortunately, the burning cherry lands right on his back, searing through the fabric of his shirt. Seiya lets out a terrified scream while her friend freezes, finally processing what's happening. Cornered in the dark, the boy realizes with horror that the gang has found their secret hideout. Nanju, the gang leader, mocks the pair, confirming she knew exactly where they'd be and asking if the losers are dating now. Her henchman steps forward, furious, demanding the new password and threatening to knock the boy's teeth out. Feeling the overwhelming danger, Hoshizora stammers, tense and unsure how to react to such heavy pressure. Gathering all his courage, he shouts that he won't say a word, standing his ground to protect their hard-earned school budget. Without any warning, Nanju delivers a brutal kick right to the student's fragile stomach. Stepping on the boy as he falls, she menacingly warns him to be very careful about what he says. Rubbing salt in the wound, the leader promises she's going to personally fix his rebellious attitude. Tossed on the dirty ground, the main character curls up, clutching his stomach as he tries to endure the intense pain. Right after that, the villain turns her focus to the other victim, surprising Seiyu and shoving the girl down hard. Seeing the cowardly assault, Hoshizora jumps up in a desperate panic, running over and demanding an explanation. Pulling the defenseless girl by her hair, Nanju laughs sadistically, claiming her boyfriend has just been discarded. Then, the henchman grabs their classmate by force and tries to pull at her shirt, causing instant panic for both of them. Totally in shock, the student freezes for a second, watching his best friend suffer at their hands. In that critical moment, he remembers the peaceful day when she first confessed her interest in astronomy. The girl had suggested with so much excitement that they should start their own organization together at school. With a massive smile, she had promised that they would both get into the same college, no matter what it took. Returning to the harsh reality of the woods, the girl struggles, distressed, while Nanju complains about how annoying her resistance is. Finding their struggle amusing, the attacker claims that difficult victims just need to be restrained by brute force. But suddenly, the big guy's head snaps back, bleeding, as he feels a heavy impact tearing through his skin. The improvised weapon was the heavy frame of the telescope, now shattered on the ground after smashing into the criminal's face. With warm blood dripping from his wound, the brute mumbles, dazed, trying to understand the attack. Still holding his hand out from the throw, the boy screams, demanding the thug let his friend go. Surprised by the loser's sudden burst of courage, the attacker stands there stunned, processing the pain in his face. In a split second, the man is overcome with lethal rage and lunges forward, swearing at the meddlesome kid. Knowing he's at a massive physical disadvantage, Hoshizora yells with all his might for the girl to run immediately. While the thug grabs the furious main character, Seiyu escapes, crying loudly, and shouts that she's calling the police. Even while being violently cornered, the student keeps his eye on the goal, buying time for the plan to work. Seizing a tiny opening, the boy bolts deep into the forest to serve as human bait. Running desperately along the dark trail, he pushes through the vegetation, lit only by the stars. His panting footsteps echo through the isolated woods as he tries to lose his dangerous pursuers. His natural exhaustion starts to weigh down his joints, but the absolute fear keeps his body from slowing down. Cold, sweating, and pushed to his absolute limit, he realizes with terror that he isn't getting out of this alive. Desolate and facing his own doom, the young man mentally wonders what his biggest mistake in the world was. His only pure desire in his heart was to keep chasing stars, under the sweet illusion of reuniting with his family. With no more energy to fight, the runner's legs finally give out, and he collapses, exhausted, in the middle of the brush. Staring into the void resigned, he accepts his defeat, thinking everything would be better if he just ceased to exist. In that exact millisecond of sadness, a monumental flash appears out of nowhere, tearing through the darkness of the sky. The boy lifts his chin, completely stunned, trying to understand the surreal glow falling right on top of him. A colossal sphere of fire rips through the Earth's atmosphere, crashing at high speed toward the forest floor. Lost in absolute panic at the apocalyptic scene, the main character lets out a shout, not knowing where to run. The crash becomes deafening the instant the violent meteor hits the ground, exploding the terrain. The fierce impact creates a destructive wave of light, leaving only the boy's small silhouette resisting the force. As the cosmic dust settles at the site, the form of an unknown woman emerges from the center of the crater. Completely desperate after these events, the student covers his eyes with his hands, shaking uncontrollably. In the middle of the flames that insist on burning the ground, the mysterious survivor sits there, completely unharmed. With an angelic expression of pure confusion, she blinks slowly, trying to figure out where she ended up. Tossed rudely onto the grass, Hoshizora is left paralyzed, staring at the magical figure surrounded by intense fire. A deadly, heavy silence takes over the destroyed environment as the two stare at each other without blinking. The human's troubled mind goes into total meltdown, trying to process the shock and the girl's complete lack of clothes. Distracted by the situation, Hoshizora hears a scream coming from the forest and realizes his friend is in trouble. Desperate with urgency, the boy takes off his own jacket as fast as he can. He extends the piece of clothing to the mysterious girl, asking her to wear that for now. The newcomer just stares at the thick fabric, not understanding absolutely anything about what that is. In a super innocent way, she asks directly how one puts on that kind of thing. The student is frozen for a moment, surprised by her lack of basic knowledge. The young alien keeps staring at him, waiting patiently for any clear instruction. But suddenly, a voice echoes through the trees, signaling that the criminals have found him. In absolute panic, the main character begs the stranger to just stand up and open her arms. Amamiya bursts through the vegetation, furious, yelling that the meddlesome kid is now a dead man. To protect his target, Hoshizora steps in front with his arms wide open, blocking the big guy's view. The attacker stops walking right away, confused by the nerd's ridiculous defensive stance. Cold, sweating from nervousness, the boy screams desperately for the thug not to look because she's changing. The criminal questions the kid's sanity, asking who he's talking to in the middle of the woods. To the student's surprise, the space right behind him in the crater is completely empty. Amamiya grabs Hoshizora by the collar with hatred. The boy tries to explain, stuttering that a meteor crashed there and a girl with no clothes came out from inside. Still suspended in the air, he tries to justify that he just lent her his jacket. The brute stares at his victim with a look of pure contempt and extreme impatience. The floor of the crater remains just scorched and silent. Irritated by the excuses, the thug tells him to stop saying such nonsense. The attacker pushes the boy away roughly, giving him 5 seconds to hand over the password for the money. Preparing a heavy punch, the criminal starts the countdown without mercy. In that exact moment, a colossal pillar of purple energy explodes violently between them. The thugs freeze in fear right away, while the main character realizes the girl has returned. An immense, shadowy silhouette starts to form in the center of the intense magical flame. The sinister figure flexes her muscular arms, dissipating the energy around her with force. The student's eyes widen in pure terror at the monstrous sight. A giant, absurdly strong woman emerges, walking heavily out of the purple fire. The criminals are totally paralyzed, shaking before the bizarre entity. Observing the scary scene, Hoshizora notices it really is the girl, but in a colossal size. The immense entity opens her glowing eyes, staring at the group with a threatening aura. One of the pupils focuses intensely, shining in a red hue like a lethal radar. A targeting system appears in the creature's vision, scanning the humans present at the scene. The main target locks directly on Hoshizora, marking him as the priority for annihilation. With a deep voice, the shadowy figure asks who among them possesses the initial power. Not understanding absolutely anything, the student asks what she's talking about. In the blink of an eye, an invisible attack cuts the two henchmen in half with extreme violence. Blood splatters everywhere, passing right by the scared main character's face. The bodies fall dead on the forest floor, leaving Amamiya and the boy in a state of shock. The nerd is locked in place, trying to process the absurd carnage that just happened. Wrapped in a soft golden light, the first mysterious girl lands gracefully on the ground. The boy stammers, terrified, realizing the cutting attack came directly from her. He can barely breathe aright, impressed by the unreal speed of the strike. Without any prior warning, the purple entity's giant arm is severed in a massive spurt of blood. The giant limb crashes heavily onto the lawn, sinking into the ground right in front of the student. Covered in the thug's blood, Hoshizora falls to his knees, completely traumatized and unresponsive. The giant monster stares at her own bleeding stump, frustrated that she didn't manage to erase the target. The golden girl positions herself calmly in front of the human to protect him from the colossal threat. Wearing the boy's jacket, the girl charges at her enemy with scary speed. Realizing the aggressive attack, the purple entity prepares to counter the lethal strike. Fallen on the dirty grass, the student observes his savior with extreme attention. He mumbles to himself, confirming that it's really the same girl from minutes ago. Analyzing the small opponent, the giantess concludes that she is definitely not a human from Earth. The mysterious girl walks calmly inside a magical circle, emanating a fierce aura. With overflowing fury, the colossal creature warns that she will eliminate this intruder first. A massive blast of destructive energy is fired by the giant hand against the girl. Without showing any effort, she dodges the lethal beam with impressive agility. Her delicate feet touch the ground, generating intense sparks of pure, flaming magic. Taking advantage of the perfect opening, the warrior lands a brutal flying kick right to the giant's face. With the devastating impact, the shadowy entity is thrown violently backward, losing her balance. After the accurate strike, the combatant floats gently back to the forest floor. Her eyes glow intensely, demonstrating absolute determination against the freak of nature. Recovering her stance, the giant entity reveals a distorted face full of angry eyes. The young warrior's arm goes into combustion, releasing pure, very powerful flames. Black corrupted flames try to trap the girl's body in a deadly snare, but fail. The monster warns in a demonic tone that weak human belongs only to her. The colossal figure invokes a massive black sphere of energy, resembling a black hole. An apocalyptic explosion consumes the entire forest in a flash of pure annihilation. The once lush terrain turns into just a sea of burning embers and smoking ash. In the middle of the fire inferno, the little girl remains standing and totally intact. However, she turns her face, worried, feeling that something went very wrong in the rear. Walking through the devastated landscape, the warrior finds the main character's body fallen on the grass. The young girl lifts the boy's bloodied face with care, trying to wake him gently. She hugs the human's limp body in a moment of silent pain under the moonlight. An incandescent hole runs through the student's chest from one side to the other. All that's left is to hope for a miracle. The lethal wound in the boy's chest starts to glow with a mysterious energy, closing the severe injury. Holding his body firmly, the girl promises she will keep her pledge. She observes the human's recovery with an attentive, glowing gaze under the moonlight. Swearing solemnly under the starry night, the alien states that she will protect him no matter what happens. High in the dark sky, the meteor shower starts falling again, illuminating the darkness of the forest. The red-haired girl reaffirms that a true miracle will finally arrive for him. Just then, the terrible memory of the severed arm spurting blood invades the boy's mind. Waking up with a jump, Hoshizora screams, terrified in his bed, cold sweating from the massive scare. Desperate from the vivid memory, he feels his own arm, trying to check if he's still in one piece. With panting breath, the student tries to calm down, processing what just happened. Turning to his side, he notices the mysterious girl sleeping peacefully, using his jacket. Taken by the purest shock, the boy recoils abruptly, hitting his back against the bedroom wall. Waking up from the noise, the visitor rubs her eyes, complaining about the yelling so early in the morning. Outraged by her calmness, he points his finger, demanding to know who she is and what she's doing in his house. Still sleepy, the alien blinks, confused, trying to understand the overreaction from the owner of the jacket. Extremely embarrassed by the sight, the boy covers his face, ensuring her he saw absolutely nothing. Trying to disguise his nervousness, he makes up the excuse that he has terrible vision without his glasses. However, the image of the young girl in front of him appears in impeccable clarity to his open eyes. The student is completely confused, realizing his nearsightedness vanished out of nowhere in a miraculous way. In an attempt to focus on something else, Hoshizora feels his face burn with shame at her lack of clothes. Turning his face away hastily, he begs the visitor to find a way to close that jacket. Unexpectedly, the redhead leans very close to his ear and whispers her full name. Surprised by the information, the boy immediately questions how she knows his identity. The memory of the previous night in the forest comes rushing back, showing the exact moment of their encounter. Shocked by the realization, he finally understands that all that craziness wasn't just a bad nightmare. Brimming with confidence, the alien reminds him that she came down to Earth with the sole purpose of protecting him. An awkward silence dominates the room for a few seconds while the boy processes the situation. Cutting the mood quickly, the student jumps out of bed, warning that he needs to go to school soon. Ignoring the alien madness, he puts on his school uniform as fast as he can in the room. Properly dressed, Hoshizora pretends everything is normal to try and escape that massive problem. Desperate to flee that absurd situation, the boy runs, bolting toward the exit of the room. With his heart racing, his only priority at the moment is to escape the girl who clearly isn't human. In a quick movement, he grabs the doorknob, hoping to open the door in time to flee. But before he could turn the lock, the alien leaps, hugging the boy from behind with a lot of strength. With the sudden impact, the student's face ends up being crushed without mercy against the wood of the door. Keeping the boy trapped, the girl warns in a serious tone that it's too dangerous for him to walk around alone. She alerts him about the various space threats that are hunting him, tightening her hug even more. Uncomfortable with the physical closeness, Hoshizora tries to break free, questioning this crazy alien story. Suddenly, the girl's strength disappears completely, and she starts sliding down his back. Unable to keep standing, the redhead collapses heavily to the floor right behind the confused student. Scared by the sudden blackout, he asks, desperate, what just happened to his protector. Completely exhausted, the traveler mumbles that her energy ran out because she hasn't eaten anything in months. Staring at the dramatic scene on the floor, the boy sighs with relief, understanding that the big emergency was just hunger. Minutes later, the student serves a generous plate of omelette with rice to his guest in the kitchen. Without thinking twice, the girl attacks the meal, taking a gigantic bite right out of the hot food. Trying to civilize the situation, Hoshizora grabs a spoon, showing her patiently how the utensil works. He explains in detail that the object serves to cut the soft, yellow part of the food. Showing its practical use, the boy gathers the rice, filling along with the egg to form a portion. Without resisting the demonstration, the girl accepts the food right from the boy's hand, chewing with joy. But in a bizarre blunder, the alien bites down on the metal of the spoon itself, destroying the tip with her teeth. The young girl complains calmly that that hard part has a very bad taste, driving the cook crazy. Checking the late hour on his phone, the student accepts defeat, knowing he's already missed his school day. Oblivious to his school problems, the guest keeps stuffing her cheeks with the delicious plate. Scratching his face thoughtfully, the boy tries to understand how his defective vision was cured out of nowhere. Staring at the mysterious hungry guest, the main question about who those enemies might be takes over his mind. The scary image of the giant monster that appeared in the forest returns to haunt his tired mind. The boy remembers the lethal and oppressive aura of that shadowy entity that almost killed him without much effort. The redhead confirms with her mouth full that that giant monster was just one of many that will come to hunt him. Putting all the loose pieces together, the young man analyzes the total madness his life has turned into in just a few hours. Reviewing the absurd facts, he remembers the exact moment when the magical figure emerged naked from the crater. Maintaining the logic of the events, the student remembers that he needed to cover the traveler with his own jacket. Right after that, the real colossal, clothes-less threat appeared, destroying everything in her path with magic. The violent magical blow cutting the monster's arm reappears like a bloody flash in his human memory. Shaking from nervousness, the boy hugs his own body while the trauma of the scary night returns. Breaking the trance of shock, the redhead brings her face close quickly, calling for him in a loud voice at the table. Completely disarmed by the approach, Hoshizora feels his cheeks burning with pure shame. Satisfied with the food, the girl stands up, wiping her mouth, and warns that it's time for formal introductions. Full of natural determination, she reveals that her true combat identity is MGS. Striking a victorious and sparkling pose, the space warrior reaffirms her sacred mission to keep him safe. Still a bit lost in his reasoning, the boy repeats the word, protection, trying to assimilate his new reality. Very excited, the traveler demands that he trust her much more than any other person in the world. Intrigued by the robotic title, the human concludes that this bizarre sequence of numbers functions like a name. Explaining the local customs patiently, the boy warns that such long codes don't work on Earth. To resolve this cultural conflict, the student suggests creating a temporary nickname that's easy to pronounce. Using astronomy as divine inspiration, he snaps his fingers, excited, and decides to name the girl Shiho. Explaining the origin, Hoshizora comments that the name Shiho is just the word star read backward. The alien lifts her arms, radiant, celebrating that now she finally has a name on Earth. Exhausted with the situation, the student just observes the girl's excitement. He leaves the room, closing the door behind him to try and breathe a little. Leaning against the hallway wall, the boy tries to process the fact that there is an alien there. The big problem is that her physical appearance is just a bit too human and completely beautiful. However, her total lack of awareness about personal space and modesty leaves him in a complete nervous breakdown. He ponders the reasons for her having crossed space to protect him and realizes he has 1,000 questions to ask. Focusing on the immediate, the main character stares at the door, thinking about the next step. The maximum priority now is to get underwear for the guest urgently. Just imagining having to go into a store to buy that kind of item, he's dying of shame. But knowing he has no other choice, the young man decides he needs to figure it out. Suddenly, Seiyu trips on the floor outside the house and lets her glasses fall. The boy runs to his friend worried, asking what she's doing there. Furious and crying, his classmate shouts that she was desperate because he vanished and didn't even show up at school. Trying to calm down, the girl warns that she needs to show him something and suggests they go inside to talk. In absolute panic, the main character blocks the door and tries to convince her to go to a cafe. Finding everything very strange, Seiyu ignores the excuse, claiming his house is a mess and she's thirsty. The door suddenly opens, revealing Shiho, who questions who is there and warns about the danger outside. The visitor freezes in place, trying to understand who is the girl wearing only her friend's jacket. Completely suspicious, his school classmate asks if that stranger is even human. Hearing the word, the alien invokes intense magical flames in her own hand. Assuming the worst, she deduces that the intruder is just another one of the enemies trying to hunt her protégé. Desperate at the imminent danger, the student screams with all his might for her to stop. Seiyu is paralyzed with terror while the lethal fire gets dangerously close to her face. Hoshizora steps in the middle, explaining quickly that the newcomer is his only friend. Still scared, the girl with glasses starts to piece things together, remembering the previous night. The memory of the meteor shower falling violently on the earth invades her mind. She reflects on the true meaning of that scary cosmic event. Maintaining her aggressive stance, Shiho points her finger and decrees that she isn't going to trust the human at all. The protector warns severely that anyone near the boy could be a threat in disguise. Just then, the traumatic scene of the cowardly attack in the forest comes rushing back. The boy freezes, realizing how dangerous the previous night's situation was. The violent memory serves as a clear warning about the real risks that surround them. Suddenly, the alien changes her tone, hugging the visitor and concluding that she is totally human. Relieved to avoid a tragedy on his front doorstep, the main character collapses to his knees on the floor. He runs to support his shaking friend, suggesting they go inside soon before something gets worse. With a furious look, the boy glares at the reckless guest while she smiles in an innocent way. Ignoring the silent scolding, the redhead turns her back and walks calmly inside. Minutes later, a glass of fresh water is served to calm the human's nerves. Now in the living room, the host hands the drink to his classmate sitting on the couch. Scratching the back of his neck, embarrassed, he apologizes for lying and warns that the story is surreal. Without blinking, Seiyu states with total certainty that the mysterious girl is an alien. The student gets a huge scare with the speed at which his friend deduced his biggest secret. Pointing to the window, he questions how the invader entered the 4th floor, and the girl just smiles, proud. Adjusting her glasses, the young human focuses all her attention on the peculiar figure in front of her. Exuding total confidence, Shiho accepts the curious looks under the bright light of the window. With everyone gathered, the host finishes the full account of the chaotic events in the forest. Massaging his temples, the boy vents that the whole space story is hard to believe. But his friend ignores the tension and opens a gigantic smile, with her eyes shining with fascination. The student just stares at the girl's burst of happiness, totally perplexed by the positive reaction. Taken by the nerd spirit of astronomy, she joins her hands, amazed at the intergalactic discovery. Bombarding the visitor with questions about her home planet, she discovers the place is called Michia. Worried about his classmate's sanity, Hoshizora reminds her that she was almost carbonized just a little while ago. Brimming with optimism, Seiyu shrugs, guaranteeing that this kind of crazy thing just happens. Defeated by mental exhaustion, the boy sighs, accepting that there's no way to fight against her excitement. He places his hand gently on the alien protector's head to grab her attention. With a more serious tone, he warns that he has a school routine, and she can't go around attacking people. Irritated by the complaint, the warrior grumbles, warning that she is also dealing with problems. Explaining cosmic physics, she reveals that every planet emits unique e-dimensional waves in its inhabitants. The alien points out that Earthlings possess their own frequencies that she should pick up instinctively. The problem is that her body hasn't adapted, leaving her sensory perception too weak. Understanding the gravity, the human concludes that the warrior can't differentiate an Earthling from an invader. With a scary smile, the redhead decrees that she will eliminate anyone who seems suspicious. Going into deep despair, the boy begs with shouts for her not to commit a massacre. Ignoring the lethal threat, Seiyu places a flyer on the table and suggests they disappear from the map for a while. The pamphlet displays blurry photos of the two, pointed out as the main suspects for the fire on the mountain. The student with glasses explains that she came running just to warn him about the police news. She details that when the police cars took her back to the forest during the early morning, everything had changed. The entire area was burning, and the security cameras only registered their presence at the location. In a panic, Hoshizora tries to find a way out, asking if the delinquent gang started the fire and fled. With a heavy countenance, his friend denies the theory, remembering the crushing attack in the crater. The main character finally puts the pieces together and realizes the criminals were killed by the giant monster. Far from there, the firm footsteps of a mysterious young woman echo lonely through the empty hallway. A colorful beach ball rolls gently along the floor until it stops right in front of the girl's sneakers. The mysterious girl bends down gently to the floor of the hallway and picks up the colorful ball for the child. Thanking her for the quick favor, the boy in pajamas takes the toy back without noticing the heavy aura around her. In that exact instant, the memory of the alien entity annihilating her henchman in the forest returns to haunt the leader, Nanju. While the little patient walks away, calm, the criminal resumes her walk through the silent hallways of the hospital. Annoyed by the memory, the girl refuses to accept that her whole gang took such an easy beating in the middle of the woods. Inside the hospital room, one of the delinquents reports, confused, that the blackout came right after taking a blow from the nerd. The bedridden partner reacts, excited, as soon as the door opens and the gang boss enters the room for the unexpected visit. Without giving any prior warning, Nanju jumps aggressively on top of one of the patients, pinning him to the bed. The injured henchman is left without a reaction, questioning if that crazy attack has any relation to his past statement. Taking advantage of the physical advantage in the position, the intruder advances her body, imposing crushing pressure on the defenseless boy. Feeling an instinctive lethal danger, the patient screams, terrified, calling for his partner in the other bed. The other member of the gang swallows hard and asks, trembling, what on earth has taken over their boss. Revealing a shadowy aura and glowing eyes, the leader paralyzes both allies with a monstrous fury. Breaking the tense mood, a nurse opens the door of the room calmly, calling the boys by their names. The healthcare professional freezes in place, totally lost upon noticing that the patients have vanished in the blink of an eye. The empty medical bed with the rumpled sheets is the only trace that there were injured people occupying that space. Trying to process the sudden disappearance, the nurse jumps, startled to hear a noise behind her back. Right behind the staff member, the trio of delinquents appears, wrapped in a dense purple energy, warning that they are already leaving. Shaking from top to bottom, the woman turns her body slowly, questioning where they got such an absurd idea. Being grabbed roughly by the shoulder, she hears the big thug reinforce that the group is in perfect condition. Desperate to escape the aggression, the poor woman begs them to let go of her grip, as they need absolute rest. As a last security card, the doctor pulls the radio communicator, threatening to call the building's guards at that very moment. Before she manages to press the button, macabre wires fire swiftly, strangling the victim's neck without mercy. The communication equipment falls from her weakened hand and hits the hospital floor dryly, with no utility. Exuding a cruel coldness, the possessed woman repeats, dragged out, that the gang is already totally cured. Using her own lengthened hair as shadowy weapons, Nanju lifts the suffocated nurse into the air. The hospital staff member loses her senses quickly, and her body collapses with violence, falling straight against the ground. The disturbing silence dominates the scene, leaving only the woman's inert body thrown on the cold floor. Acting as if nothing had happened, the thugs turn their backs on the crime scene and move forward. Leading the sinister march, the villain celebrates, excited, claiming she can't wait to see her partner Amamiya again. In another moment during the early morning, Nanju runs in absolute panic along the dark forest trail. With breath quickened by the escape, the fugitive remembers the deafening crash that made her go to the site of the chaos. Upon reaching the epicenter of the destruction, she catches the colossal magical creature standing in the middle of the total ruin. Hidden carefully behind a tree, the criminal shakes with terror upon concluding that the monster erased her henchman. The image of another gang partner invades her mind, bringing the despair that everyone might be dead. Pressed by the surreal threat, the human resumes her insane run through the middle of the woods, being lit by a reddish flash. Ripping through the night sky violently, a second meteor loaded with space energy crashes into the terrain. From the interior of the residual purple energy, a black alien mass emerges sneakily, looking for the closest target. Noticing the bizarre sound right behind, the delinquent picks up the pace, trying to lose whatever that thing is. Without the slightest chance of escaping, the shadowy sludge leaps lithely, crossing the air straight for the girl's back. Surprised by the fast danger, the leader turns her body in a huge startle, trying to understand the cowardly attack. The amorphous creature hits the victim's face squarely, invading the human's mouth by force to take control of the body. Returning to the chaotic present in the hallway of the medical building, the gang leaves the nurse's body behind. With her mind dominated by the parasite's will, Nanju focuses her main objective on locating the partner lost in the city. A luminous gem glows intensely in the dark vacuum, confirming that the hunter feels the target's presence with precision. Cutting through the urban night, the characteristic sound of police sirens echoes frantically through the huge buildings of the metropolis. Parading through the busy streets, the woman with glowing eyes promises mentally that she will soon reach the missing alley. In the quiet of the main character's house, the infamous police poster with their photos remains left on top of the coffee table. Analyzing the conspiracy theory, Seiyu discards the arson, guaranteeing that the gang was eliminated by the giant monster. Hoshizora is left baffled by the disappearance of the enemies and questions what the true tragic end of those troublemakers was. The studious friend agrees, pointing out that the group missed class today and prays that they disappear from the map for once and for all. Wanting to flee this tense drama, the host changes the subject, grumbling that the current urgency is getting clothes for Shiho. Opposing the idea of the outing, the space warrior squeezes the boy's arm, warning that he is forbidden from leaving without an escort. Curious about the cosmic powers, the guest asks directly if the alien doesn't possess any ability to shrink or disguise herself. The galactic combatant breaks the expectations right away, stating clearly that she doesn't know how to do those transformation tricks. Seiyu goes into a panic, remembering classic terrifying stories about parasites that enter through the mouth to steal human bodies. Dying of fear about the macabre subject, the main character changes the route of the talk, asking what is the standard fashion on her home planet. Ignoring the complexity of terrestrial modesty, the warrior rests her finger on her face, questioning if clothing is such a fundamental business. In a sudden flash of genius, Shiho jumps back, all excited, claiming she remembered a very similar solution. Opening her jacket with the most naturalness in the world, the alien displays her bare skin underneath, thinking she solved the whole adaptation problem. The scare is so brutal that the two earthlings shout in unison, turning their faces so they don't look at the other's lack of awareness. Activating her magic, the protector materializes a battle armor extremely tight to the body and strikes a proud pose. Hours later, the trio decides to risk a safe exit and arrive at the luxurious windows of a gigantic mall in the region. Planted in the aisle of the women's section, Hoshizora awaits the clothes test, focused silently on the closed fitting room. Regretting the delay, his friend sighs, discouraged, commenting that she really messed up by not going inside to help the ET. In that same instant, the curtain of the structure moves, denouncing that the exotic client finally finished the procedure. Shio exits the fitting room wearing a typical white school shirt, but presenting serious difficulties with how the piece fits. Suffering with the pressure of the short fabric, the alien screams, distressed, that she is running totally out of oxygen in her lungs. The two students freeze in place, observing the fabric giving way, and the warrior shaking from so much effort to support the insane squeeze. The tension in the seams rises to the maximum limit, violently forcing the small plastic fasteners of the closure. Without being able to hold the intense tug, the middle button is ripped from the shirt, shooting through the air like a bullet. Hoshizora cringes, startled, dodging out of pure reflex while the lethal little piece tears through the wind near his head. With her clothes torn and her chest free, the cosmic girl lets out a sonic relief, celebrating that the sensation improved by 100%. The boy's brain has a general blackout, trying to assimilate the absurdity of living a comic book cliché scene in real life. Angry at life with the fascinated reaction of his classmate, Seiyu pulls him by the collar, dragging the nerd far away from the visual danger. The store salesperson interrupts the moment of tension, asking politely if they are going to take the piece. The staff member indicates gently the location of the register so the customers can finalize the purchase. Very embarrassed by the whole situation, Hoshizora hands over his credit card, stuttering a quick apology. Already outside, Shiho displays her new casual outfit, while the main character sighs with relief for having managed to dress her. The girl's exotic beauty immediately attracts the curious looks of two boys passing by the location. Several people around start to whisper, amazed, comparing the redhead young girl to a famous celebrity. The student tries to disguise his nervousness, hearing the rumors that he might be the lucky boyfriend of that belle. Watching everything up close, Seiyu makes a face, feeling a sharp pang of jealousy for the attention her friend is receiving. Just then, a girl with glasses in the middle of the crowd recognizes her school classmate walking with the foreigner. The nearby women gossip, trying to find out if the redhead is just a younger sister or a classmate of his. Listening to the murmurs about them looking like couple, the nerd friend becomes even more uncomfortable with the romantic scene. Innocent about terrestrial customs, the alien pulls the collar of the shirt, complaining that that outfit has no defensive utility. The boy tries to explain patiently that garments on Earth serve more to protect the body in a social way. Impressed by the revelation, the space warrior asks, amazed if that custom is really that important. The moment of learning is cut suddenly by a female voice calling the student's name in a loud voice on the street. With eyes shining with joy, the protector guarantees that she will keep the outfit with care since it was a gift from him. Totally disarmed by the alien's sweetness, the boy turns his face, red with shame, accepting the gratitude. Seiyu covers her own blushing face, completely frustrated for finding that whole dynamic way too cute. Wanting to flee that romantic tension, the main character suggests they go eat something, cheering up the redhead right away. The trio decides to go up to the floor above and settles at the tables of a very busy family restaurant. Taking advantage of the break, the student with glasses vents that the initial excitement gave way to a bad feeling of alert. Worried about the future, she questions if the visitor will leave Earth after solving the space problems. Shaking from anxiety in the chair, the human insists on knowing more about the dangerous enemies that are hunting her friend. The young Earthling wants to understand in detail what is the true appearance of those creatures that represent danger. Thoughtful, Shiho rests her chin on her hand, remembering that the universe is vast and harbors many very different species. She details that some invaders look like normal humans, while others are shadowy parasites capable of changing form. With a serious and penetrating look, the warrior warns that the threat could be hidden perfectly in any place. The mood in the restaurant gets heavy when she suggests that any person inside there could be a monster in disguise. Tense at the imminent danger, Hoshizora questions why on earth those beings are after him and how they discovered his existence. Trying to understand the monster's motivation, the boy demands clear answers, but gets a scare when his partner touches his chest. Exuding a soft magic through the tip of her finger, the alien states that she can feel clearly the hidden power in him. The student's chest starts to glow intensely with a mysterious golden energy right underneath his dress shirt. Completely shocked by the light emanating from himself, he recoils without understanding what that bizarre force is. The warrior explains that attractive energy is exactly what the space invaders are hunting desperately. Suddenly, Nanju emerges from behind the bench, resting her hands on the boy's shoulders and warning that she found him. The main character jumps, startled, in his chair upon recognizing the gang leader who attacked him cowardly in the forest. Cornering the boy at the table, the blonde warns in a frighteningly calm tone that the gang came to talk about the previous day. While the human goes into a panic with the ambush, Shio continues devouring her dessert calmly. To the absolute surprise of everyone, the trio of criminals throws themselves on the floor of the restaurant, begging for forgiveness with shouts. The bizarre scene grabs the attention of the customers, who start to whisper, trying to understand the motive for that humiliation. Extremely embarrassed by the public scandal, Hoshizora begs for the troublemakers to stop that soon. Still kneeling, the leader reports that she had a terrible nightmare where the student was brutally murdered by a creature. Demonstrating a bizarre emotion, the old enemy confesses that the dream made her realize how vital he is for everyone. Seiyu whispers, terrified, to the alien, remembering that the bullies would never act with such spontaneous humility. Exhibiting a shadowy confidence and sharp fangs, the protector agrees that now she can feel their true nature. Without losing time, the warrior jumps nimbly over the table, ready to start the combat in the middle of the restaurant. The possessed leader lifts her face with a calm expression, without demonstrating any fear of the lethal assault. With her hands glowing in pure magical power, the alien warns, excited, that she will eliminate the threat infiltrated there. In an explosion of intense flames, she invokes her lethal fire armor, ready to incinerate the cruel invaders. The customers around take out their cell phones impressed, thinking that the magical transformation is some kind of recording. Desperate at the imminent destruction, Hoshizora screams, demanding that his partner stop causing confusion in public. Ignoring totally the appeals of the prodigy, the redhead advances, relentless, leaving a burning trail on the polished floor. The gang's henchmen just observe the flaming warrior approaching at high speed without trying to run. The alien's burning arm rips through the air in a lethal strike, aiming directly at the false human's chest. With total force, Shio grabs the big guy's trunk with the clear intention of piercing the enemy body without mercy. The student and his friend are left jaw dropped upon noticing that the magical hand went through his flesh without causing a wound. With a macabre expression, Nanju holds the flaming arm that pierced her ally's body as if it were pure air. Maintaining her calm pose, the villain explains with irony that they only came there to try and keep things peaceful. Confused by the unreal resistance of the enemy, Seo and the student freeze while the customers continue filming everything. The possessed henchman stares at the heroes with blackened eyes, warning coldly that he doesn't want to prolong that conversation. Extending her hand in an authoritative way, Nanju demands that they hand over the boy so they can leave peacefully. Repelling the cowardly demand, the warrior lands a devastating kick right to the arrogant face of the possessed blonde. The spectators recoil, scared by the real violence of the strike, finally noticing that it isn't an armed staging. The heavy impact throws the enemy leader against the tables, destroying the furniture of the restaurant with a loud crash. Exuding pure flaming fury, Shiho decrees in a loud and clear voice that the Earthling belongs exclusively to her. With a threatening and lethal look, the Cosmic Protector warns that she will never hand over her prodigy to the parasites. Fallen in the middle of the wreckage, the blonde girl remains immobile while the dust settles in the totally tense environment. Ignoring the pain of the brutal impact, the villain starts to stand up slowly from the rubble of wood and broken glass. The enemy's face is taken over by a sinister shadow, revealing the true corrupted nature that inhabits the human. Wiping the blood from her face with mockery, the parasite swears at the brave heroine, calling her a stupidly selfish brat. In a colossal explosion of black energy, the shadowy entity questions arrogantly if the redhead thinks she's in charge there. The crushing pressure of the evil aura launches Hoshizora and the others backward, breaking windows and causing general panic. Taken by absolute terror, the customers scream, desperate, and run out of the establishment in search of escape. Cringed near the destroyed window, the main character observes the mass exodus without knowing how to act in the situation. In the center of the devastated scenario, Shiho remains firm and imposing, ready to face the total fury of the threat. Laughing in a hysterical way in the middle of the rubble, Nanju decrees that everyone there can die, except Amamiya. Pointing firmly, the possessed leader warns that the student will return to their planet along with the team. Without understanding anything, Hoshizora questions the absurdity while the enemy details that she will put him in a special growth tank until adulthood. The boy goes into despair, questioning about the tank and wondering mentally why on earth everyone is after him. Focusing on the human, the parasite reveals in a shadowy tone that the true motive of the hunt is the primordial power. She explains that that is the fundamental energy of the universe in expansion since the Big Bang, and that it will awaken soon upon reaching maturity. The shadowy entity projects that absurd force become unimaginably powerful in the future. Full of arrogance, the villain declares that with that level of power in hand, she will finally reach her goal and bursts into laughter. Cutting the enemy excitement right away, Shiho glares at the blonde, ordering her not to get in her way. Surprised by the aggressive attitude of his partner, the boy stares at her, tense, waiting for the next move. Just then, the two brutes of the gang prepare to attack, warning that the game is over and they will annihilate the pair. With her body exuding pure flames, the space warrior concludes that then she doesn't need to hold back her own strength in combat anymore. Going into a panic at the lethal intention, the student begs the protector not to kill the humans, suggesting only extracting the aliens from them. Turning her face in a carefree way, the raidhead admits she could even do that, but grumbles that it seems to be a lot of work. Without giving a chance to defend, the warrior advances fiercely, landing a flaming strike right to the face of the first henchman. Shocked by the immediate violence, the main character swallows hard upon seeing the ease of the attack. With an acrobatic movement, the alien lands a brutal kick, launching the bandit violently into the air. Taking advantage of the distraction, the heavier henchman tries to grab the heroine with both hands. But, with an unreal speed, she counters, landing a potent knee right to the big guy's chin. The two attackers fall completely passed out on the floor, while Nanju lets out a scream of terror at the defeat of the group. Noticing the opening in the confusion, the boy holds his friend by the hand, knowing that staying near the combat is certain death. He pulls the girl with glasses, demanding that she come soon to a safer place far from the rubble. Accompanying the escape attempt, the parasite leader opens a sadistic smile, planning her retaliation. Dozens of shadowy tentacles sprout from the floor, scaring the students while the villain mocks the escape attempt. Before they could react, the evil ropes wrap around Seiya's body, immobilizing her completely. The young human is lifted without ceremony through the air, remaining trapped in the middle of the destroyed restaurant without a way to break free. To make the situation worse, the sharp tip of one of the tentacles positions itself lethally right near the hostage's neck. With the advantage in hand, Nanju warns that the boy belongs to her and demands that he surrender if he wants to save the annoying girl. Pressing the psychological even more, the parasite laughs, mocking, questioning if the human can't follow a simple order. Completely trapped, Hoshizora extends his hands, accepting the terms, and shouts for her to put his friend on the ground immediately. Interrupting the surrender, Shio asks if he really wants to live in a tank, but the boy retorts, remembering Seiyu is the hostage. Maintaining control of the situation, the leader warns, threatening that she will kill the classmate right away if he makes any sudden movement. Drawing the tension of the moment, the space warrior denies the surrender firmly, leaving the villain confused. With her arm-fuming power, the protector decrees naturally that she doesn't care at all if just any earthling dies there. Hearing that absurd coldness, the main character is left totally in shock with his eyes widened in disappointment. Finding amusement in the discord, Nanju mocks the boy's bad luck while the hostage moans, desperate in the dark bindings. Taken by despair, Hoshizora screams for the alien not to do anything and begs again to trade places with the trapped friend. The redhead pulls her prodigal's shoulder firmly, telling him to forget about the girl and give up that useless idea. Feeling a deep rage, the boy reacts right away, giving a violent slap to the warrior's hand to break free. He glares at the protector in a hard way, stating in a tone of heavy disappointment that she really doesn't understand humans. The image of his super excited friend returns to his mind, remembering how radiant she was for finally meeting an alien. Positioning himself with his back to the redhead, he finishes the thought, lamenting that after all that support, she acts in that cruel way. Full of determination, the student declares that Seiyu is the most important friend he has, and if the warrior doesn't respect that, it's over. The fire alien lowers her gaze in silence, apparently absorbing the weight of the human's harsh words. Ending the argument with hurt, the boy states that if that is her thinking, then they will have to say goodbye forever. Catching the boy totally by surprise, Shiho pulls him by the collar, warning that first they need to give a proper goodbye. Without giving a chance for response, the warrior advances, bonding her lips to his in an intense and sudden kiss. During the touch, a mysterious red energy starts to emanate from the boy's back, while he freezes with wide, open eyes. The reaction is instantaneous in the villain's body, forcing the hidden alien essence to tear the host's flesh to get out. The misshapen freak emerges completely from the shadows, feeling the strong resonance of the activated primordial power. The redhead ends the contact, wiping her lips gently while the earthling tries to process what just happened. Passing right by the stunned prodigy, the warrior waves from behind, giving an ironic bye to him. Walking toward the enemies, she warns that the boy should have been good from the beginning since he doesn't know how to use his own power. The parasite's attention focuses totally on the newly awakened energy, freeing Seiyu from the lethal bindings without importance. Right after that, Hoshizora's left arm goes into combustion, transforming into an absurd flaming claw. The possessed leader widens her eyes, completely incredulous at the imposing transformation of the human. Analyzing the raw energy, the villain realizes with terror that the boy just absorbed the traits of an alien from the planet Michia. Impelled by the newly acquired strength, the student bolts, leaving a trail of embers across the floor. He crosses the restaurant like a missile of fire, passing right by the protector and aiming the attack directly at the main threat. Taken by extreme panic upon seeing death arriving, Nanju lets out a shrill scream of pure despair before the impact. Discharging all the cosmic fire accumulated in a devastating punch, the main character questions if that level of strength is enough. The explosion energy resonates through the cosmos, traveling rapidly to the most extreme and distant limits of the vast universe. In an incredibly remote galaxy, the technological facilities of a mysterious planet start to pick up the brutal energy anomaly. In the depths of that shadowy world, hooded figures gather, wrapped in shadows in an imposing hall with a suspended sphere. The collective consciousness of the group questions how such a primitive and insignificant star system was capable of generating such a miracle. Focusing on the pulsating structure of flesh in the center of the room, the villains note, irritated, that an inferior being awakened the primordial seed. Several bizarre eyes open in the misshapen mass, expressing deep frustration about how that absurdity managed to happen. In a tone of absolute decree, the voices state that supreme force must remain unique and cannot exist in double doses in the universe. The council reflects on the unknown cause, warning that countless inferior beings are already marching toward a planet called Earth. Analyzing the chaotic scenario, a woman with short hair alerts about the dangers if someone manages to monopolize the power source alone. A gigantic tentacular structure connected to the core reinforces the gloomy vision, claiming that the event will end in absolute disaster. Agreeing fully with the imminent risk, a little girl in a dress warns that rise will bring a catastrophe to the entire cosmos. A shadowy entity reveals that they sent an execution officer to the location rapidly, but the extermination mission failed miserably. A hooded figure mocks the assassin's incompetence, questioning how a random earthling survived the lethal encounter. Cutting the small talk, the multi-eyed monster asks the superior if the main mission now is just to obliterate planet Earth from the map. A mysterious leader comments, intrigued, that they sent someone to Earth a long time ago. The monstrous entity of multiple eyes mumbles the name of Leet. Just then, the commander remembers that that primitive planet was precisely the place where the warrior ended up being exiled the last time. A feline silhouette agrees, remembering that she already exterminated an entire world before, suggesting she eliminate the target soon, once and for all. Evaluating the planet's situation, the council decides that the exiled one must do a total cleaning if necessary, since the human world is worth nothing. Back at the destroyed restaurant, Amamiya breathes panting after discharging his flaming punch against the enemy. Seiya widens her eyes, completely shocked, without understanding how the classmate manages to use a power like that. Still dazed by his own strength, the student stares at his own burning arm, trying to process what he just did. Intense heat emanates from the fire claw recently formed by the boy. Impressed by the scene, Shiho deduces that the Protaiga really managed to absorb the ability of the Michia alien. Fallen in the middle of the rubble, the possessed leader moans in pain, trying to recover from the brutal impact she took. With a firm posture, the boy demands that the disgusting creature exit the body of Nanju immediately. The parasite suffers violent spasms and swears at the boy, calling him an unknown alien freak while losing control of the host. Without being able to resist the damage, the shadowy sludge is forced to exit, being vomited violently by the human victim's mouth. Taking advantage of the perfect opening, the alien protector advances in an agile leap, ready to capture the monster in the air. A voice congratulates the attack from behind, making the main character turn, completely confused with the situation. The boy goes into absolute shock upon seeing Seiyo fallen on the floor with a severe injury in her chest. Desperate at the terrible scene, he runs toward his friend, shouting her name at the top of his lungs. Supporting the bloodied body of the young girl, the student begs her to hang on while Shiho holds the alien sludge in the background. Rushed, he presses the wound with his shirt, but goes into a panic upon noticing that the bleeding doesn't stop at all. With tears in his eyes, the human cries, warning that his classmate will die before help arrives, begging for the same magical cure as before. Holding the parasite, the space warrior explains calmly that transferring the petrification energy of Michia is very dangerous. She approaches the fallen pair, alerting that the friend's human body would probably explode like a balloon if they tried to heal her by force. The alien details that common bodies are too fragile to support the load, and that he only survived because he possesses the primordial power. Squeezing the captured creature with force, the protector admits to being impressed by him already managing to use that absurd strength. Furious at the futile explanation, the boy screams that he doesn't care at all about that cursed power he never asked to have. Looking at his classmate and the passed-out enemies, he vents that he never wished for all that misfortune to happen. Consumed by guilt and sadness, the boy cries, admitting that even being mistreated by the bullies, he didn't want them to end up dead. The galactic warrior loses her confident pose, staring at the Pratyai with surprise before that genuine empathy. Breaking the fragile moment, thick black tentacles invade the restaurant, shattering the glass window with violence. The strident sound of police sirens starts to echo through the streets, grabbing the group's attention in the restaurant. Suddenly, the entrance door is smashed by an absurd quantity of tentacles looking like hair strands. Firm footsteps crush the anomalies on the floor, while a female voice deduces that that level of destruction has a clear reason. The newcomer adjusts her dark glasses on her face, stating with conviction that that could only be the work of aliens. Striking a flashy pose, a fake policewoman enters the establishment in ruins, full of attitude. Very excited at the chaotic scene, the woman points her finger, celebrating that she hit the jackpot upon finding 2 targets at once. Confused by the extravagant approach, the student asks, stuttering, if the woman is part of Earth's security force. Brimming with a huge smile, the supposed policewoman affirms her identity, but warns in a mocking tone that that is just a facade story. Lowering her glasses to see better, the invader focuses on the boy, recognizing him as the famous Earthling from the celestial rumors. Without prior warning, the captured parasite tries a quick lunge in the direction of the mysterious agent. The uniformed woman blocks the attack with a green magical barrier, letting out a contained exclamation of surprise. Wielding the enemy sludge like a black whip, Shiho opens a lethal smile, thanking her for not needing to hunt the infiltrated targets. Noticing the murderous intention, the invader raises her hands in surrender, asking for calm and justifying that she's just following orders. Taken by an instinctive fury, Shiho advances, attacking with violence and questioning if the order is to kill her protégé. Facing the furious onslaught, the galactic agent raises the palm of her hand calmly to repel the aggression with her own magic. The brutal attack of the protector is barred instantly by a shield of emerald energy, completely impenetrable. Exuding calmness, the agent asks for the warrior to breathe deeply and relax, leaving the alien without understanding the perfect block. In the following second, a crushing gravitational force throws Shiho to her knees on the broken floor without her being able to react. With the sudden impact of the magical weight, the black sludge escapes the girl's hand and falls inert right in front of the pair. Breaking the concrete floor with extreme violence, a giant shadowy tentacle erupts from the depths of the building. Scared at the lethal monstrosity emerging out of nowhere, Amamiya screams, paralyzed with pure panic. The official retreats respectfully before the giant entity, greeting formally the Special Supervisor Leet of the Galactic Union. The boy observes the pillar of darkness rising imposingly before him, locked by the level of absurdity of that oppressive presence. Controlling the entire environment with her shadowy roots, the entity orders with an imposing voice that everyone can lift their heads. Cornered by the shadowy bindings, the possessed parasites shake with dread while the voice accuses them of having caused all that useless mess. Sighing from pure frustration, the fake policewoman rests her hand on her forehead and questions if the troublemakers completely forgot the space laws. Changing the tone of playfulness to a veiled threat, she reinforces that Earth is a sector classified with severe restrictions. Pointing the accusing finger, the woman decrees that the area serves only for observation, making the parasites crawl, begging for forgiveness. Without understanding a single word of the alien language, the student concludes, perplexed, that the lethal aberrations are humiliating themselves in fear. The woman in uniform opens a shadowy smile, pretending to accept the pathetic creature's lame excuses about seeking galactic peace. Repeating the word, peace, with total disdain, the lethal entity raises her deadly tentacle over the fearful parasite. The supposed policewoman takes a firm step forward, exuding an aura of unquestionable authority through the destroyed room. Focusing on the cowardly monster, she questions in an icy tone who on Earth gave him permission to act on his own on Earth. In the blink of an eye, the shadowy blade pierces the alien sludge without the slightest mercy, tearing a yelp of agony from the victim. The officer's face assumes a cruel coldness under the dark glasses, demonstrating zero empathy for the creature sentenced to death. Crushing the parasite's body until purple blood splashes everywhere, the authority states that the scum only wanted to steal the power. The annihilated remains of the freak stain the shattered floor, proving the lethal and absolute strength of intergalactic justice. Changing personality instantly, the woman smiles gently and salutes, warning that the punishment was concluded successfully. Shaking from top to bottom, Amamiya stutters, terrified, asking himself if she really just murdered the creature without hesitation. Walking slowly to the student cringed on the floor, she confirms the execution in a casual way and calls him a special earthling. With a sonic snap of her fingers, the space commander dissipates all the shadowy energy bindings that were crushing the surroundings of the restaurant. Lifting the boy's chin with an ironic delicacy, she ponders aloud what would be the best destination for his miserable life now. Staring at the defenseless target, the galactic agent reveals that that would be the perfect moment to execute her orders and discard him from the universe once and for all. A dive into the beginnings of creation reveals that the coveted primordial power was born from the explosive flash of the space Big Bang itself. That absolute force was divided into two unique parts, where one became the radiant light that generates life, and the other, the darkness of the abyss. For billions of years, the two forces maintained perfect harmony and sustained the balance of the universe until something changed. Dominated by greed, an individual stole the shadowy energy in secret to get even more cosmic power. Spreading chaos and destruction, that traitor generated a long war until finally being captured and executed by the Galactic Union. To avoid new disasters, the organization came to the conclusion that the dark essence should be erased for all eternity. With that, the current system of the Union was installed in the center of the universe to govern the star systems and protect the civilizations. They selected highly capable supervisors and assigned them to monitor every existing star system without interruptions. Focusing on planet Earth, the multi-eyed leader warns late that the terrible shadowy power ended up manifesting over there. The supreme entity decrees that the human carrier of that dangerous energy needs to be found as rapidly as possible. Drinking her drink calmly, the agent hears that the mission must be fulfilled without committing any grave failure. The main order is to eliminate the target before he matures completely and awakens his lethal strength against the space order. The commander reinforces that, being a special class supervisor, the official has plenty of power to resolve the problem with speed. Without demonstrating much emotion, Leet just continues drinking while hearing the cruel instructions through the luminous hologram in the dark room. The superior voice remembers that 1,000 years have already passed since the warrior was exiled to that totally primitive planet. Right after that, the entity promises that if she fulfills the mission and erases the boy from existence, she will finally be able to return home. Back at the destroyed restaurant, the space agent holds Hoshizora's chin, confirming that he is that special earthling. Staring at the boy closely, the official comments in a sadistic tone that that would be the perfect chance to eliminate him once and for all. Exhibiting a malicious smile, she warns that she could fulfill her extermination order right there, without any apparent problem. Totally desperate at the imminent danger, Hoshizora cries, begging the powerful woman to save the lives of his injured friends. The policewoman sighs, finding it amusing, pointing out that even having that absurd hidden power, he still acts like a very fragile earthling. Meanwhile, Seiyu continues fallen in a bad way on the floor, losing a lot of blood due to the extremely grave injury in her own chest. Holding his friend in his bloodied arms, the main character warns that the warrior can take all his energy if she wants to help. In exchange for the absolute power he carries, the boy only asks for the official to save his classmates, and all the civilians present from that tragedy. The supervisor observes the dramatic scene in complete silence, processing the unusual proposal coming from the boy in total despair. Approaching the target calmly, the woman touches his head gently, preparing the ground to seal the definitive agreement. In a much more serious tone, she questions if he really understands the consequences of handing over that dangerous level of universal strength. Shaking from fear and with his eyes tightly closed, the student shakes his head, agreeing fully with the cruel terms demanded. Satisfied with the firm response, Lead opens a mischievous smile and asks for permission for a second to perform the lethal procedure soon. Without losing time, the agent pulls the boy into an intense kiss, being rapidly enveloped by an incredibly bright magical light. Maintaining direct contact without hesitating, the alien warns that the human's primordial strength hasn't awakened totally to the world yet. Just then, an immense sphere of pure black energy starts to be extracted violently right from the chest of the scared host. Sucking the shadowy energy little by little, she guarantees that kissing him was the only practical way to manage to tear out the incomplete power. Ending the magical contact abruptly, the official recoils, panting, wiping her lips while trying to support the load she just sucked. With a confident smile on her face, she holds her own chest, commenting that that quantity of alien energy was gigantic. Making a quick signal crossing her glowing fingers, Lead announces, excited, that now they are totally ready to act at the location. A colossal explosion of green magic takes over the environment, leaving the student extremely shocked by the unexpected reaction. Releasing all the accumulated power without mercy, the space agent screams at the top of her lungs the imperative command to reverse the entropy. Massive waves of emerald light spread through her agile body, illuminating the devastated scenario with an absurd visual intensity. A bright flash erupts fast from the center of the broken restaurant, completely blinding the vision of everyone present there. Outside the building, an immense dome of healing energy covers the entire city block in the blink of an eye, scaring. Under the bizarre effect of space magic, time rewinds instantly, fixing the cars and the damaged buildings of the street. Inside the already reconstructed establishment, the customers recover totally without understanding what they were doing, thrown on the clean floor. Fallen on the polished floor to the side, Seiyu wakes up very confused, questioning the motive for being lied in the middle of the restaurant suddenly. As in a true inexplicable cosmic miracle, the entire room is reconstructed perfectly without leaving any mark of the fierce battle. Amazed at the wonderful result, Hoshizora touches his friend's shoulder, letting out a deep sigh of relief for not having lost her. He notes, extremely relieved, that her lethal wounds disappeared completely as if they had never existed in the young girl's body. The bullies of the gang stare at each other totally shocked, noticing that they aren't hurt and that the place doesn't have even a scratch. Holding the redhead alien suspended by the collar of her shirt, Leet displays the prisoner, stating that she fulfilled the boy's wish. Walking calmly, the policewoman warns that unfortunately she still can't take the complete power until the earthling matures for once. The student wipes his mouth, embarrassed, while the agent explains that for now she can only suck the energy little by little, making small holes. Furious with the stolen kiss in front of her, Shiho glares at the woman with glasses with a shadowy look filled with pure murderous intention. The space supervisor raises her hand, continuing the threatening explanation, saying that she has an alternative much faster for the problem. But suddenly, the girl from Micha grabs the policewoman's uniform with brutality, demanding that she doesn't dare touch the defenseless human. Leet lowers her gaze, totally surprised by the unforeseen boldness of the smaller adversary facing her supreme authority in the full room. Pulling the enemy close, Shio warns through her teeth, growling that she is the only one who has the sacred right to protect her target there. Without being shaken by the other's petulance, the agent lands a kick on the red head, guaranteeing that she has another option much simpler in mind. Hoshizora goes into despair, shouting for them to stop while the official points her finger, sentencing that she could just murder him. The very strong impact of the defensive blow throws the cosmic warrior straight to the cold floor of the establishment, without ceremony. With a lot of fear of a new tragedy starting out of nowhere, the boy cringes, locked, waiting, terrified, for the worst possible outcome in the combat. Upon not hearing any noise of a blow hitting the alley, he opens his eyes slowly, catching the policewoman distracted and standing near him. Fallen on the smooth floor of the lounge, the warrior focuses her vision on the leg of the opponent standing in an harmless and threatening way near her face. Tripping forward suddenly, the galactic supervisor complains, irritated, that the unforeseen grab almost made her hit her face on the floor. Adjusting her straight posture with a sheepish smile, she comments to herself that she already finished everything they had asked for in the original plan. However, without any type of prior warning from her own body, the policewoman drops limp in the direction of the upholstered bench of the silent diner. The main character is left totally incredulous upon seeing the incredibly strong woman pass out of nowhere, spread on the table like a heavy rock. Observing the fallen and harmless rival, the cosmic warrior explains that the energy of aliens runs out gradually far from home. Staring at the serene face of the sleepy agent on the bench, she deduces that powerful woman must have been living on Earth for a long time. The redhead concludes naturally that, for being quite weakened, forcing a colossal healing magic completely fried her energies. The buzz returns to take over the perfectly normal establishment, with the customers acting as if it were just a common lunch day. Hoshizora notes, amazed and stunned, that all the people there around returned exactly to normal after that long and exhausting scare. Thrown on the polished floor right in the main hallway, leader Nanju wakes up disoriented, questioning why on earth she is left on the floor in that way. The henchman stands up, terrified, swearing without understanding anything that they were in the hospital before appearing magically in that illuminated place. A polite waitress approaches, asking for silence from the troublemakers, while the blonde girl demands to understand what madness is happening. The main character massages his own head, exhausted, feeling the strong mental confusion get worse with that absurd show of bizarre things of the day. Taking a drastic attitude without thinking much, he grabs the alien partner and his friend, deciding that fleeing fast is the only option. Running desperately through the illuminated parking lot on the busy street, the student breathes, panting, praying that no one comes after them. Carrying the unconscious warrior, Hoshizora stares at the mysterious woman, questioning mentally who she really is. Totally exhausted with the situation, he throws himself on the floor next to Seiyu and tries to understand what the space agent is planning. Observing the group of criminals being expelled by the staff, the student realizes that the policewoman cured everyone. The boy notes that she restored the entire restaurant perfectly and apparently didn't have any intention of hurting him. Far from there, a staff member approaches Leet, asleep at the table, to warn that it is not permitted to sleep in the establishment. The woman wakes up slowly, adjusting her dark glasses while the waiter grumbles about the quantity of customers sleeping over there. Giving a sheepish little laugh, the official notices that she ended up passing out suddenly because of extreme hunger. Totally recovered from the fatigue, the agent calls the staff member, excited, warning that now she will place her order properly. She requests nothing less than 5 bowls of braided pork and 3 curry dishes all at once. Savoring the giant meal, the policewoman praises the food, stating that the Earth's dish is definitely the best of all. Just then, the scenario changes to the dark night, showing the old photo on a desk that brings strong memories of the past. The boy remembers his school time and questions mentally if he doesn't look too much like someone called Shiarashi. Walking through the silent street, Seiya finally arrives in front of her house, accompanied by her friend. The young girl sits at the entrance door in the dark, totally discouraged, while a mysterious hand approaches from behind. A voice calls for the girl in the dark, making her turn, scared, to see who is there. Without understanding very well, Seiyu blinks, confused, upon listening to the familiar voice coming from the door of her own house. The girl's mother opens the door suddenly, giving a huge scare to the daughter who was sitting there on the floor. The woman questions, worried, the motive for the young girl to have vanished until that late hour and why she was out there alone. The housewife calls her daughter to go inside soon and protect herself from the night cold. Observing the scene from afar on the deserted street, Hoshizora lets out a deep sigh of pure relief for seeing his friend safe. Already in his own bedroom, the student vents that he is exhausted while Shio throws herself on the bed, amazed at the softness. He tries to scold her, asking for the guest not to lie down with those dirty street clothes. However, the boy notices right then that the alien warrior has already passed out completely on the mattress. The main character puts the pieces together, remembering the policewoman's explanation about aliens losing energy far from home. Comprehending the situation, he deduces that that was why the protector also fainted and needs to sleep to recover. Staring at the serene face of the sleeping girl, the boy asks himself the real reason for her risking so much to protect him. The old promise of his mother echoes in his mind about a miracle arriving when the meteor shower fell again. Bathed by the light of the starry sky, the human reflects if the space warrior might be the great miracle he waited for so much. In a distant and chaotic dream, an incandescent meteor crashes with violence on a totally devastated terrain. In the middle of the hellish destruction, the magical figure of the alien falls from the sky, enveloped by intense cosmic explosions. The scenario of the memory changes to a rocky and desolate landscape of the warrior's home planet. A magical hand appears, condensing the elements of the environment to create a small, shining rock as a demonstration. The teacher teaches a group of children about how to use the elements around to crystallize them and form meteors. She explains that ability is the same one that allows adults to transform their own bodies into a resistant rock. Little Shiho observes the shining magic up close with her eyes totally amazed and full of excitement. The instructor encourages the students, stating that everyone will manage to do that if they focus on the elemental energies. One of the children closes his eyes and concentrates a lot until managing to generate a magical spark in his own hand. The student celebrates very happy upon noticing he managed to create his first shining rock successfully. Right after that, the other little classmates master the technique rapidly, celebrating that it's much easier than it seemed. The teacher praises the group's performance, while the little redhead remains isolated in the back, trying to concentrate. Exerting herself to the maximum, the little girl shakes, trying to invoke any spark of magic in the palms of her hands. Frustrated by her own failure, she lowers her gaze, sadly confessing that she can't manage to do the exercise at all. The boy next to her blows his own magic with disdain, just to show off in front of the others. The other children start to laugh and point their fingers, humiliating the girl for not managing to do such a basic task. Being cruel, one of the students suggests that her parents weren't from planet Micha and abandoned her only with a serial number. Continuing the wicked provocation, the brat challenges his classmate to create a meteor if she is really mad at them. Totally devastated by the cruel words, the little girl runs away crying through the technological streets of her home planet. She hides behind a large rocky formation in an isolated area to shed her tears in peace. Little time later, the gentle teacher finds the student's hideout and approaches calmly. Welcoming the child, the instructor pets her head, guaranteeing that there doesn't exist anything wrong with her power. The woman consoles her, saying that when she grows up everything will become easier, making the little girl thank her for the caring support. Determined to repay the care, the young alien starts to train hard alone, every day relentlessly. In a silent early morning, she continues her heavy routine of isolated concentration on top of the rocky mountain. The absolute silence of the alien desert serves as a stage for the warrior's endless effort in training. Focusing all her vital energy in the palms of her hands, a strong golden glow finally starts to take physical form. The effort is rewarded and the little girl celebrates, radiant, upon seeing the perfect magical rock floating in her hands. She grabs the luminous object firmly, feeling the weight of her own success for the first time. Without losing a single second, the girl runs away in a bolt, calling for her teacher at the top of her lungs. With a gigantic smile on her face, she repeats to herself that she finally managed to master the elemental technique. But the joy is interrupted abruptly when she freezes in the middle of the path, totally scared by something ahead. The shock is so big that the newly created rock slips from her hands and falls, cracking on the dusty floor. The little girl hears a scary destruction noise echoing from outside the cave and goes on alert. Shaking from top to bottom, the little girl widens her eyes, feeling the lethal danger approaching rapidly. The sight from the outside is a chaotic hell with gigantic beasts destroying the entire city in flames. One of the monstrous and imposing creatures rises menacingly right in front of the defenseless young girl. Facing certain death, the girl loses her voice completely and paralyzes with terror without being able to flee. Without any mercy, the wild beast lifts its claws and delivers a devastating blow against the child. Massive explosion of fire rips the scenario, blocking the attack before it reached the fragile target. The impact of the heroic block generates a violent shockwave that throws the little girl backward with force. The student falls, sitting on the hard dirt, complaining of the fall's pain while trying to understand how she survived. Lifting her head hastily, the young girl recognizes immediately the silhouette of the person who stepped in front of her. The gentle teacher appears, lifting a flaming magical barrier, holding the giant beast's arm alone. In tears and very confused, the little girl asks, desperate, to the instructor what is happening there. Turning her face in a serene way, the heroine calls the student by her space identification number in a caring way. Condensing an intense luminous magic in her hand, the master orders the little one to hide until the danger ends. Seeing the destruction around her, the little girl screams in total despair, fallen on the floor of that hellish scenario. The darkness takes over everything and the little one begs for help, asking if everyone is okay. Waking up with a jump, the now grown warrior pants on the boy's bed, trying to process the nightmare. Still shaken by the painful memory, the alien notices that she just dreamed about her shadowy past. She turns her face, observing the night outside while trying to calm down after the terrible scare. The caring memory of her old instructor comes to her mind, and she asks silently for the woman to guide her. Observing the classmate sleeping peacefully beside her, the redhead states that she finally found him. With a lot of determination, the combatant swears to protect that powerful earthling no matter what happens. The young girl reaffirms her lethal promise to keep him safe until the day of awakening arrives. In the middle of absolute pitch black, the student runs, desperate, trying to flee from a threatening voice that calls him. Hoshizora wakes up suddenly in his bed, pulling the air with force after the disturbing dream. Without any warning, a monstrous shadow appears right on the human's back, demanding his energy. Taken by panic upon hearing the macabre threat, the boy begs for help from the alien partner. He calls the warrior's name at the top of his lungs, hoping that she saves him from that haunting. To his total surprise, the space policewoman appears out of nowhere, exhibiting a lot of excitement early in the morning. Scare, the boy loses his balance and falls backward, screaming, terrified, in his own bed. The supervisor approaches, intimidating, demanding that the target hand over all his energy immediately. The blood freezes in the boy's veins, and he is left frozen, staring at a completely macabre scene. The figure of Seo appears, floating lifeless with her bloodied body, while blaming her friend for all of that. Totally horrified at the tragic sight, he mumbles the classmate's name, holding his own face. Exhibiting a shadowy look without the glasses, the galactic agent advances, charging for his power once again. The woman grabs the human with brutality, yelling for him to hand over the primordial strength once and for all. In an explosion of panic, the main character screams at the top of his lungs, waking up for real in his illuminated bedroom. With his heart racing and his breath heavy, the human wonders if everything was just a delusion. He turns his tense face and comes across the alien partner sleeping peacefully in the bed next to him. The warrior rests deeply, letting out a small snore without noticing the prodiga's despair. Massaging his own head, Hoshizora concludes that the quantity of recent traumas is frying his brain. Trying to calm down, the student decides he needs to leave the house urgently to breathe a little fresh air. Little time later, the bell of the convenience store rings, indicating the client's exit after the shopping. Already on the street, the boy sits at the table, sighing with relief while preparing to eat his morning snack. Appreciating the moment of peace, the boy thinks about how much he misses his boring and peaceful routine. Taking a nice bite of the food, he hopes mentally that his friend with glasses is well and safe at home. Just then, a mysterious figure in gym clothes approaches the student's table silently. The space supervisor appears, stretching casually with a tight red sports outfit. Taken by a new huge scare, the boy falls backward, knocking over the chair with the sudden surprise. Staring at the defenseless prey on the floor, the woman questions ironically the motive for so much despair from the human. Maintaining a calm posture, the official asks for him to relax, guaranteeing that she isn't going to devour him right there on the street. Minutes later, the two start walking together along a small dirt road very far from the city. The agent lets out a loud laugh, celebrating that she finally feels alive again after recovering her strength. Trying to understand the absurd situation, the human questions if she spent all her energy fighting monsters at night. Drinking her tea, relaxed, the woman confirms the deduction, remembering that eliminating invaders is her job. Crushing the plastic bottle with anger, Leet grumbles, frustrated for having left one of the creatures alive. Walking along the open field, the policewoman confesses that she ruined everything by ignoring the lethal order, and now she can't return home. Confused by the sudden kindness, the boy questions, stuttering, why she simply didn't fulfill the assassin mission. Lowering her gaze with a nostalgic expression, the woman hesitates before explaining her true motive. Clenching her fist with plenty of excitement, the agent declares that she did that just to spite the Galactic Union. The student is left without understanding anything of the answer while she warns that it would take days to explain the political details. Exhibiting a greenish magical energy, the supervisor decrees that the boy will have to take responsibility. Without an option to flee, the woman explains that she needs to find an alternative way to return to her planet. Hugging the excited target, Leet announces that the plan now is to build a spaceship using his and the redhead's energy. The human asks, tense, what they need to do right off the bat, but the official warns that first his power needs to awaken. Revealing an ambitious and threatening look, she confesses that she will need an absurd quantity of that primordial force. Pulling the boy's cheeks with force, the policewoman guarantees that she will stick to him the whole time to keep him alive until then. The main character's mind goes into complete meltdown just from imagining having to put up with two problematic aliens in his routine. Desperate to escape that madness, the young man runs in a bolt, screaming that he doesn't need another cosmic bodyguard. The school bell rings loudly through the courtyard, indicating the start of another long day of classes for the school students. Panning from the run, Amamiya opens the classroom door, relieved at having managed to arrive right at bell time. He notices his friend with glasses sleeping hunched over her own desk, and feels calmer knowing she arrived safely. A classmate enters, bumping into things, apologizing late while the others charge for his absence the previous day. Walking to his own desk, the boy notes, thoughtful, that the bullies didn't show up to study today. Sitting in his place, the student reflects that the gang's injuries were cured yesterday and prays that they haven't bumped into monsters. Total silence dominates the classroom while the students stare, confused, at the person standing near the blackboard. The sound of the chalk hitting the chalkboard grabs everyone's attention to the new presence that just took over the class. The student feels a chill down his spine upon recognizing the unmistakable figure taking leadership of the place. Wearing an elegant social suit, the intergalactic policewoman introduces herself, excited, as the new teacher of the class. Completely in shock at the audacity, the main character hits the desk, standing up to the shouts, demanding to know what she is doing there. The school principal reprimands the boy right away, questioning if he has some problem with the new staff member. The rest of the class glares at the nerd, complaining about the sudden outburst and calling him weird for shouting like that. Cornered by the cruel judgments of the classmates, Hoshizora tries to understand the motive for everyone acting in such a hostile way. The students accept the change of teacher with bizarre naturalness, leaving the boy terrified by the mental manipulation. Exuding a subtle emerald aura, the fake teacher waves happy, guaranteeing that everyone will get along very well during the year. Defeated by the invader's manipulation, the human collapses in his chair, lamenting deeply having gotten involved with so many space problems. Far from there, the broken window of a hospital room is stained with blood while a female voice screams, swearing with a lot of hatred. Leader Nanju appears, left on the medical bed all bandaged after the brutal beating she took in the restaurant battle. Biting her own finger until it bleeds from so much anger, the delinquent cries, lamenting for always ending up in the worst possible scenario. The aggressor hits Nanju's head with a bottle, yelling, irritated, about how many times he needed to tell her to refill the drink. Kneeling on the floor, the girl covers her head, begging for him to stop, complaining that her skull is going to explode from pain. Just then, the scene returns to the dark hospital room where her two henchmen are lying in the beds, injured. The memory of the brutal confrontation that destroyed the family restaurant invades the injured delinquent's mind. Totally dazed, the blonde holds her own head, trying to understand what kind of bizarre memories those are. Noticing the situation, she deduces that the creatures seem to keep the memories of the bodies they dominate. Suddenly, the black parasite appears, forcing entry through her mouth, suggesting they become one single body for real. The shadowy entity warns that now the connection will be very different from when it only used the human's body as a host. Being invaded by force, Nanju widens her eyes while the monster promises that they will achieve that special power. With her eyes glowing in a sinister purple, the freak guarantees that she will fulfill absolutely every desire of the human. Returning to the present moment, the aggressor kicks open the door of the room, shouting the leader's name, furious. Staring at the young girl fallen in the dark, he swears at her, calling her useless for killing class, just to stay filling her face with food. The subject advances, hitting the bottle in his hand, threatening to finish with each one of them right there without mercy. Wrapped in a sinister energy, the girl stands up slowly, mumbling that she won't allow that to happen. Exhibiting a lethal smile and corrupted eyes, Nanju decrees firmly that she won't let anything she desires escape. At school, the sound of the chalk hitting the board grabs the attention of the entire class during the silent class. The space supervisor writes on the board, explaining that the place now functions under an absolute dictatorship. Amamiya is tense, remembering the absurdity of having an alien acting as the teacher of the room. With a confused expression, the boy asks himself how things reached that crazy point so fast. The agent hits the desk, grabbing the student's attention, giving him a huge scare right after that. Exhibiting an ironic smile, the official questions if he knows how to survive under a rigorous dictatorial regime. Cornered at his own desk, the main character swallows hard, repeating the word survive. Totally nervous. Maintaining the threatening pose, the woman warns that his only option is to obey orders in an unquestionable way. Clapping her hands, excited, she praises the boy's understanding and tells him to focus on the day's lesson without distractions. Seiyu observes the scene from afar, suspecting a lot of the strange behavior of the mysterious new teacher. Ignoring the tension, the invader announces happily that the class will move on to the next topic of the subject. The student sighs, exhausted, admitting that he never imagined aliens infiltrated his school for real. He reflects that, at least, the woman doesn't seem to want to cause problems and asks himself if he should have brought Shiho. Far from there, the warrior wakes up with a start in the bedroom, opening her eyes with a jump, startled and a bit disoriented. A completely disheveled, the redhead shouts at the top of her lungs that she is dying of hunger in the empty bed. Scratching her eyes, the alien grumbles that she ended up sleeping too much because she was left totally without leftover energy. Excited by the idea of eating, she calls for Amamiya, commenting that she really feels like eating omelette with rice. Looking around the illuminated bedroom, the visitor notices that the place is completely empty and silent. Worried about the sudden disappearance, the space combatant rises from the bed, rushed, calling for the prodigy's name through the house. She runs through the rooms of the residence, looking for the boy in every corner, without obtaining any type of success. Desperate, in the middle of the living room, the space traveler shouts the student's name at the top of her lungs. Distressed. Pulling her own hair, the girl goes into a panic, concluding that he went out alone to the street without warning about anything. The deep frustration takes over the heroine while she tries to process the size of the problem that means. Trying to keep calm, the redhead extends her hand, deciding she only needs to track the presence of that special power of his. Concentrating her focused investigative magic, the warrior's eyes glow with intense and incandescent energy. A tracking wave is released through the environment in the attempt to pick up any signal left by the runaway target. The spell fails miserably, leaving the alien totally shocked for not feeling absolutely any clue. Without thinking twice, she kicks open the door of the house, running to the sidewalk in a rush, in search of the human. Cutting the street at high speed, the warrior tries to understand the motive for not being able to pick up the boy's energy. Running aimlessly through the city, the heroine wonders, distressed, if the grave failure in the magical radar is because of hunger. Reevaluating the situation rapidly, the combatant concludes, frustrated, that she should have recovered enough energy. Just then, two children pass by, conversing that the school class ended earlier on that calm day. The boy invites his little friend to go eat pudding at his house, remembering the snack that was left kept in the fridge. The alien listens to the innocent conversation and decides right away that she needs to go check this school to look for him. She focuses on the heavy steps she takes on the asphalt, remembering that the earthling prodigy also tends to frequent that place. Stopped at the busy intersection, the redhead is left totally lost without knowing the exact direction of where his school is. A furious driver hunks strong, ordering her to get out of the middle of the dangerous street, warning the crazy girl to move soon from there. Suddenly, the heroine's alien senses fire upon picking up an extremely lethal presence in the surroundings. Reacting rapidly to the danger, she takes a leap with a lot of strength, breaking the asphalt under her own bare feet. The car brakes abruptly in the scare while the traveler notices she definitely felt something very shadowy around there. Taken by absolute urgency, the warrior bolts, warning that the bizarre anomaly is very close from there. Running at full speed along the sidewalk, she focuses intensely on the black smoke rising far on the horizon of the city. With a confused expression, the redhead finds it strange that evil energy doesn't look like the presence of Amamiya at all. Upon arriving at the disaster street, the heroine stops abruptly, feeling the atmosphere, absurdly heavy, taking over the environment. Women pass by running, terrified, bumping into the alien who tries to understand the origin of such generalized confusion. Turning the rush corner, the warrior is left completely perplexed, trying to understand what on earth is happening on the street. The terrifying sight of the tragedy makes the alien's eyes widen in pure shock and disbelief before the danger. The gigantic residential building burns in intense flames, while the crowd despairs, helpless, outside the location. A little girl cries a lot, holding her stuffed teddy bear, calling for her mother in the middle of that desperate confusion. The space traveler freezes on the asphalt, assimilating the absurd chaos and the intense heat of the devastating fire in front of her. A traumatic memory of her past comes back with everything, showing the shadowy monsters destroying her old home city. Returning to the harsh reality, the firefighters rushed, to remove the children from the location taken over by the burning flames. The residents cornered at the windows of the upper floor beg for immediate help in the middle of the fire that spreads fast. The redhead lowers her face, feeling the enormous weight of the painful memories of her cruel training in childhood. The protective image of her old teacher saving her from death resurfaces as a very strong emotional trigger in her mind. Without thinking twice about her own risk, the heroine jumps directly into the building, ignoring the warning shouts. One of the firefighters of the rescue team orders the crazy girl to stop immediately and go back before it is too late. The people on the street are shocked deeply, warning in panic that a girl just ran inside the fire hell. The uncontrollable fire consumes the destroyed hallway, creating a lethal barrier of heat right in the path of the immediate rescue. The intense flames explode with force through the closed room, showing the extreme danger that the brave alien just faced. Cutting through the fierce flames, Shiho emerges, sliding out of the building while carrying a woman and a child in her arms. Observing the impossible rescue, a woman in the crowd mumbles, totally shocked, without believing what she just saw. The firefighter approaches, thanking her for the absurd heroism, and soon asks if all the civilians were already removed from there. Still panting from the effort, the warrior shakes her head negatively, warning that the work hasn't ended yet. Trapped right in the middle of the uncontrollable fire, Nanju remains left on the floor while a threatening shadow approaches. Ignoring the desperate warnings of the firefighter, the redhead bolts, returning straight to the burning hell. The interior of the apartment continues being completely consumed by the destruction of the relentless flames. Surrounded by the extreme heat, the delinquent leader stares fixedly at an old photograph being devoured by the fire. The shadowy entity celebrates in her mind, stating that now they finally managed to remove a big obstacle from the way. Promising total freedom from then on, the parasite creature tries to calm the girl who still hesitates, scared. Guilty, the host laments deeply, confessing that she never wished for things to reach that tragic point. The malign presence demands that she doesn't demonstrate weakness now, remembering the main goal of stealing that power. Pressing the victim's psychological, the anomaly reinforces that absurd strength was exactly what she wanted to have so much. Yielding totally to the shadowy influence, the young girl's eyes glow in a purple tone while she mumbles about the power. Just then, the sound of rushed steps echoes through the destroyed environment, grabbing the girl's immediate attention. In an explosion of brute force, the blocked door is kicked away, opening a path through the smoking rubble. Totally surprised by the interruption, the villain freezes in place, trying to identify who just invaded the room. The redhead heroine emerges, panting in the middle of the smoke, leaving the parasite irritated with that totally unexpected appearance. The monster deduces, worried, that the protective alien must have tracked their whereabouts to there. Recovering the heavy breath, the cosmic combatant smiles, relieved, warning that she arrived in time to perform the rescue. But suddenly, the space traveler widens her eyes, noticing a very dangerous detail in the victim in front of her. Pointing her finger, indignant, she recognizes right then the presence of that nasty creature from the previous day. Feigning innocence, the blonde coughs weakly, questioning about what type of invader story the girl is talking about. The redhead lowers her guard, believing that the human really lost her memory after vomiting the monster at the diner. Taking advantage of the savior's hesitation, the girl forces a painful cough, simulating being on the verge of a breakdown. Without thinking twice, the heroine supports the injured blonde on her own shoulder, decreeing that they need to flee from there urgently. The ceiling of the apartment starts to yield dangerously, while the fire hell threatens to swallow both girls for good. Already on the safe asphalt, the paramedics run with the stretcher, rush to help the last victim rescued from the disaster. Totally exhausted, the alien wipes the sweat from her face, complaining that she spent much more energy than she had calculated. The extreme fatigue was caused by an emotional slip, since the flames brought back the traumas of her past. Even in safety, the warrior touches her chest, suspicious, having the certainty that she felt a scary threat in the building. Lying on the stretcher, the delinquent leader sheds copious tears, calling for her parents in a totally desperate tone. The victim cringes on the floor, crying her eyes out, making a scene that moves all the professionals around there. Completely deceived by the perfect performance, the heroine herself starts whimpering, feeling sorry for the poor human. But as soon as no one is paying attention, the parasite opens a cruel smile, celebrating the success of its disguise. The protector's physical limit comes to an end and she loses total balance, tripping, weak, in the middle of the isolated street. The redhead collapses, passed out on the asphalt, scaring the firefighters who run immediately to check her health state. Maintaining the poor girl mask, the blonde accompanies the movement, demanding that the savior also be taken to the hospital. The face covered in fake tears hides the satisfaction of having managed to manipulate the situation to her favor. The scenario changes to the chaotic emergency room, where the medical team runs, desperate, to attend to so many victims. Lying comfortably on a clinical bed, the space warrior finally wakes up from her blackout, letting out a light moan. Scratching her eyes, confused, she tries to recognize the hospital environment and deduces that she ran totally out of battery again. The curtain is pulled, revealing Nanju, who asks for apologies for the absence, justifying that she needed to visit her own parents. Brimming with sympathy, the girl thanks from the heart for the heroic rescue that ensured the survival of her family. Feigning extreme worry, the parasite approaches, asking gently if the savior is feeling any pain through her body. Before she could answer, the redhead's stomach rumbles incredibly loud, denouncing the extreme hunger she is feeling. Defeated by the appetite, the combatant confesses the brutal hunger, making the visitor ask for her to wait a minute right there. Without raising any suspicion, the blonde leaves quickly from the room, leaving the alien patient waiting in the bed. Alone in the bed, the heroine accompanies the girl's exit, just observing the silent hallway of the hospital building. Returning rushed, the human extends a chocolate bar, demanding the patient eat that to get stronger. With a super friendly way, she explains that she bought the candy rapidly from an automatic machine in the floor's hallway. Shining with pure happiness, the redhead attacks the snack, thanking effusively for the unexpected kindness. Chewing the chocolate, excited, the alien praises the girl's kindness, totally oblivious to the enemy's bad intentions. Observing the opponent's naivety, the parasite analyzes how she seems just a harmless fool, eating in that way. Crossing her legs, tense, the villain tries to understand the motive for the rescue and asks herself how much the heroine knows about her disguise. With a calculating look, she continues evaluating each reaction of the knave girl to discover some opening in the plan. Taking the initiative, the blonde asks for permission, warning that she needs to tell something important without the other freaking out suddenly. Making a lot of drama, the host stammers, saying that her recent memories seem a totally confused nightmare. She narrates a tragic story about having passed out in the dark forest and having awakened miraculously in the middle of that restaurant. In absolute panic, the shadowy consciousness screams in her mind, demanding to know why on earth she is giving away the disguise. Totally cold, the leader orders mentally for the monster to shut its mouth, since she needs to test the opponent's knowledge. Resuming the theater, the young girl relates remembering a scary fight against someone identical to the redhead warrior. The sudden intimidation makes the parasite swallow hard, sweating cold, fearing that her mental game went way too far. In a genuine epiphany, the protector joins her hands, deducing that the monster's memories ended up sticking to her mind. Extremely talkative, the ET starts to fire all the chaotic events of the previous day in a super summarized way. Hiding the sadistic smile, the villain celebrates internally the absolute victory of having deceived the cosmic heroine successfully. The conversation is cut by the entry of a nice nurse wanting to know if the patient feels any pain through her body. Preparing her medical instruments, the professional warns politely that she needs to collect a small blood sample. The nurse asks for the young girl to relax while positioning the cold needle directly against the patient's resistant skin. To the absolute shock of the doctor, the metallic tip simply bends against the girl's hard skin without piercing anything. Completely perplexed at the biological absurdity, the staff member stares at the various bent syringes thrown on the tray. Desperate for a logical explanation, the woman blames a supposed factory defect and runs out to look for new needles. The blonde is left confused, questioning the motive for not blood coming out, until the redhead's stomach rumbles again with brutal force. Totally red from shame from the sudden sound, the traveler lowers her shoulders while the visitor stares at her, surprised. The door of the room is closed rapidly so as not to raise any suspicion. Right after that, the nurse returns asking for apologies for the delay and warns that they will redo the exam. Totally confused at the scenario, the professional stares at the empty stretcher without understanding where the patient vanished to. Far from that hospital, Shio bites a gigantic hamburger, killing the accumulated hunger. Sitting at the table, Nanju comments impressed that the alien is too skinny to put up with eating so much like that. The blonde rests her face delicately on her hand, just observing the companion chewing in a carefree way. Just then, a sad memory arises, showing the parents fighting ugly while the little Nanju cried from hunger. The loneliness of the past haunts the girl's mind, cringed alone in a dark corner of the street. The abandonment continued, marking the life of the young girl who remained sad and thrown to the roadside. Suddenly, the voice of the parasite echoes in the host's mind, grabbing her attention to the current moment. The entity warns that it is not time to whine about the past, reinforcing that their main target is the boy's power. The monster insinuates that the protector also wants to steal his strength, but Nanju states, irritated, that she already has a plan. She ponders that the redhead is too strong and a direct fight would result in a certain and humiliating defeat. The shadow creature agrees, fearing the return of the galactic supervisor, and questions what would be the tactic without using magic. With huge confidence, the delinquent decrees that the first mission is to distance the savior from Amamiya. Continuing the theater, the blonde vents that her family is a mess, and many times she wished they would vanish. The girl reports that maybe that's why she never ran away, confessing she felt a lot of fear when the fire started. With all her charm, the villain thanks for the miraculous rescue and soon lets out the proposal of being friends. Taken by a huge surprise, the space traveler widens her eyes, letting her own hamburger fall on the table. Completely confused at the terrestrial term, the heroine questions innocently if that friendship is something tasty to eat. In that moment, the redhead mumbles, trying to associate the meaning of the word with constant support in difficult moments. Then the image of her old master arises in her mind, bringing the warmth of who always protected her in the worst moments. Nanju extends her hand over the table, asking for the alien's name to seal that new social bond. Demonstrating a lot of sympathy, the human introduces herself formally as Nanju Naji, waiting for the answer. With pure emotion, the combatant holds the new friend's two hands, revealing her earthly name, very excited. Inside, the parasite feigns joy, confirming the perfect partnership with the dangerous opponent. Shiho radiates genuine happiness, feeling that she just conquered her first friendship on planet Earth. While that at school, the new space teacher announces, excited that the final exams happen next week. Seiyu complains that that was her first class in life, but the agent ignores it, guaranteeing that everyone will get top marks. Striking an exaggerated pose, the supervisor boasts about having hundreds of years of experience on her teaching curriculum. Without giving a damn about the doubts of the students in the room, the teacher guarantees that there doesn't exist any problem with the exam content. The main character reflects that he needs to focus on his studies and cannot let himself be carried away by that alien madness forever. A nostalgic memory takes over him, showing the time when he used to observe the starry sky next to his mother. That peaceful moment ended on the exact day when the maternal figure simply disappeared without leaving traces. Since then, his father dove into work, traveling a lot, which made the boy create the theory that his mother also researched the stars. He swears mentally that he needs to get into an astronomy university, no matter what, to seek his own destiny. The boy understands clearly that that study is his only real chance to reunite with his lost mother. After saying goodbye to the class, the galactic agent orders everyone to go straight home to study, giving a huge scare to the focused student. The young man breathes, relief upon walking through the school hallways, happy that no disaster happened during the school period. Holding tight the handle of his backpack, he confesses that all that sudden silence ends up generating an absurd nervousness. Just then, the familiar voice of Seiyu grabs the boy's attention, interrupting his line of reasoning right there in the middle of the hallway. The young girl adjusts her own glasses and asks, shyly, if he would like to start studying for the exams with her. Full of hope and blushing a lot, the friend awaits the answer, hoping that the partnership works out. The main character is a bit surprised by the unexpected invitation, but soon his expression softens, comprehending the situation. The boy accepts the proposal, exhibiting a light countenance, knowing that he needs to focus totally on his university future. On the way home, the nerd girl is stunned by the story about the space policewoman and how everything went down the previous day. The young girl questions if it is still worth focusing on studies in the middle of that madness, but the friend agrees with full strength. Adopting a firm posture, the boy guarantees that even dealing with bizarre things, their reality remains the same. He decrees that he will get into college, come what may, exciting the classmate who promises to give her best along with him. Suddenly, the student asks for the whereabouts of the redhead, and the boy confesses that he left the alien at home in the morning. Very amazed, the human remembers that the space protector had sworn that she would never leave the side of the earthling prodigy. Stopped at the traffic light, Hoshizora explains that he took advantage of the guest's heavy sleep to manage to escape stealthily in the morning. The classmate imagines the traveler wearing only her friend's shirt and questions mentally if it is safe for the two to share the same house. Without managing to hide the jealousy that hit hard, the girl with glasses mumbles that she understood the situation, lowering her face, frustrated. To break the ice, the friend asks about his father, but the student brushes it off, warning that the old man keeps traveling the world. Worried about the safety, the nerd suggests that they change the plans and study at the boy's house instead of the public library. Scratching his face, awkward, the boy theorizes that the invaders must be hiding since no bizarre presence was felt. Seiyu goes into a panic, demanding more responsibility from the friend, alerting that the alien would never stay quietly waiting for him. Aware of the enormous danger, the main character agrees with his friend, admitting that the heroine definitely must have caused some chaos. But the student reflects that talking about reality is easy, and that in practice the crazy figure of the partner charging for food scares him a lot. In the middle of the street, Hoshizora points to the black smoke on the horizon, questioning if that isn't a fire for real. Seiyu recognizes the exact location of the neighborhood and concludes, incredulous, that the fire is destroying the delinquent's building. Dominated by a stored grudge, the young girl grumbles that the bully deserved the tragedy, asking the friend's opinion. Contrasting the friend's hatred, the boy laments the situation, remembering that the blonde didn't always act in such a despicable way. A gentle memory arises in his mind, showing Nanju smiling and waving happily in a distant past. Noticing the boy's hesitation, the human nerd tries to disguise the frustration, grumbling that that whole thing is very strange. Irritated, she squeezes her own skirt and gets frustrated mentally for him forgiving the girl who made his life a living hell the most. The nerd classmate pulls the friend's arm with sudden strength and hastens the step, demanding that they go away from that place soon. As in a pass of magic, Shio leaps in the air, exuding energy and shouting the name of the protégé with extreme longing. The impact is so strong that Hoshizora almost loses his balance upon being crushed by the totally euphoric hug of the traveler. The redhead rubs her face against him like a needy puppy, stating very happy that she went straight home as he had ordered. Surprised by her blind obedience, the human blushes, asking for space while trying to understand who gave that order in his place. Forcing a lot of naturalness, Seiyu greets the rival while the alien responds, all sympathetic, calling her friend. Facing the exaggerated excitement of the cosmic protector, the main character just comments calm that she seems to be in a great mood. All excited, Shiho announces that she also managed to make a new friendship. Surprised by the unexpected news, Seiyu stops walking, questioning who that person would be. Right after that, Nanju comes out of the shower wrapped in a towel, welcoming Amamiya. The shock takes over the hallway, leaving the two students completely paralyzed. Going into absolute panic, the main character points his finger, yelling the name of the old enemy. Full of pride, the redhead introduces the new classmate, guaranteeing that she already vomited the alien. Still shaking at the bizarre scene, the nerd friend stutters, trying to confirm if it is her for real. Just then, Seiya remembers that the warrior cannot differentiate humans from space invaders. The traveler just mumbles, confused, while the host pays attention to the tense conversation. Using her perfect theater, Nanju cries, saying she lost her house and doesn't have anywhere to go. Moved by the lie, the protector agrees that friends help defenseless earthlings. Taking advantage of the emotional opening, the ex-delinquent takes a step in the direction of the house owner. She approaches quite close to the boy, asking in a provocative tone for him to give a little help. Consumed by pure fury and jealousy, the girl with glasses warns that that is not her first time there. Without thinking twice, Seiyu pushes Amamiya away, cutting the mood between the two. Taking the front line, the student reminds her classmate about the promise they made to study. Annoyed by the intrusion, the guest lifts her face, ready to rebuke the annoying nerd. However, Seiyu shoots that dedicated students have exams and plan to enter university together. Staring at the rivalry from above, Nanju understands perfectly what is the intention of that human. Changing tactics rapidly, she turns her back, deciding that she will also participate in the studies. Exuding an imperceptible shadowy aura, the girl warns that she will live in that place for a while. The absurd announcement leaves the two students completely perplexed and without reaction in the hallway. The gasp of amazement of the pair echoes through the outside of the residence on that busy afternoon. Already settled in the living room, the group tries to focus on the books while the intruder tinkers with her phone. The constant noise irritates deeply the main character and his friend who just wanted to study in peace. Ignoring totally the tense mood, the ex-delinquent bursts into loud laughter from a video on the internet. Tired of that lack of respect, the host demands silence in case she isn't going to help with the subject. Mocking the scolding, the girl displays a prank on the screen, stating that she is studying the world. Losing patience, the nerd student stands up from the table, agreeing with a very threatening tone. The provocateur blinks, confused, without understanding the sudden change in attitude of the studious girl. Without any warning, Seiyu advances, squeezing the enemy's cheeks with quite a lot of strength and rage. While pulling her face, the nerd charges for explanations about the motive for so much intrusion into them. Desperate at the physical aggression, the student begs the classmate to let go the brazen guest. Interrupting the fight, the alien warrior defends the new friendship, making the situation even worse. The protector demands respect, remembering that the injured girl is an important person to the human. Hearing that innocent speech, the fake friend lowers her face, maintaining a calculating expression. Yielding to the group's pressure, the studious student lets go of the girl's face and moves away, annoyed. With the mood ruined, Seiyu decides to leave, and the friend offers to accompany her back. Excited for the outing, the traveler invites the classmate, but receives a refusal because of fatigue. Before crossing the door, the main character demands that the invader doesn't destroy the house during the exit. Walking along the night street, Seiyu reflects in silence about the troubled past of those two. Even knowing that the ex-delinquent studied with him the whole life, the motive for the bullying is a mystery. Diving into her own memories, the student with glasses remembers with affection the first encounter. On that distant day, a little Amamiya offered food gently to the crying little girl. That simple act of kindness in the park was enough for her to fall madly in love with him. Time advances, showing that the young man was the first person in the world to demonstrate interest in her. In a memory of the school hallway, the nerd boy walks calmly, holding his books. Suddenly, a young Nanju with a very sweet appearance appears, wanting to know where he is going. Smiling a lot, the girl reveals that she was also going to the library and decides to accompany him. The scene changes to the silent study environment, where the pair reads together, watched from afar by Seiyu. Trying to strike up a conversation, the popular girl asks, curious about the difficult theme of the classmate's book. Showing the cell phone screen all silly, she tries to connect the astronomical theme with their zodiac signs. Faithful to his logic, the main character adjusts his glasses, stating that those predictions don't have a real base. He points out the grotesque errors in the drawing of the constellations, leaving the companion frustrated. Completely embarrassed by the nerd correction, she turns her face, grumbling that it wasn't about that. Resuming her posture, Nanja questions, intrigued, the motive for him spending his days focused on stars. The boy confesses his professional dream, asking for immediate silence upon being reprimanded by another student. Dissatisfied with the quick cut, the student makes a pouting lip, staring at the target up close. Ignoring the library rules, she brings her face close, demanding to know only one more piece of information. In a discreet whisper, the young girl asks which high school he intends to attend in the next school year. The studious one reveals the name of an elite institution, shocking the classmate by the difficulty of the opening. Exhibiting a confident smile, he guarantees that he needs that to transform his dream into reality. The genuine determination in the boy's look leaves the young admirer completely enchanted in silence. Moved by his goal, she makes a very serious internal decision about her own future. From that day on, the popular girl started pulling all-nighters, studying frantically alone. Time passes until the moment when the young girl opens an envelope, shaking from pure nervousness and anxiety. An explosion of happiness takes over her upon confirming that she was approved in the feared selection exam. Holding the official paper from the elite school, she celebrates the victory of finally being able to accompany him. But the joy is destroyed cruelly when a male hand burns the newly conquered certificate. Fallen on the dark floor of the house, the student cries from pain while the alcoholic father mocks the effort. The mother appears in tears, blaming the daughter for passing in an expensive institution and charging unreal money. Surprising the girl, the maternal figure hands over a thick wad of money, asking for her to be calm. With her face completely disfigured by aggressions, the sick woman smiles, swearing that she will pay for everything. In a fit of madness and pain, the lady guarantees that enduring the beatings will fund the tuition. Taken by the most absolute despair, Nanju grabs the bloody notes, shouting that she can't take it anymore. In the middle of the shadowy despair, Nanju extends her hand, calling mentally for Amamiya to comfort her. The illusion is cut when she sees the boy waving and smiling in a very gentle way for someone else. Totally dazed with the sudden scene, the girl widens her eyes without understanding the situation. Observing the happy pair walking through the hallway, the rejected girl questions who the girl with glasses is. She notices, intrigued, that the student's face looks very different and illuminated when he smiles like that. Dominated by jealousy while applying makeup, the young girl gets irritated, remembering that he never smiled like that for her. Unconformable with the rejection, Nanju focuses on her own appearance, guaranteeing that she is much prettier than the rival. Discounting the frustration in the hallway, the girl bumps purposely and knocks down the newcomer. Without the slightest empathy for the other's fall, the aggressor steps heavily on the book fallen on the school floor. Covering her mouth with evident fakeness, the bully apologizes, pretending that it was just an accident. Seiya tries to recover the material, cringed, while the rival feels a deep hatred for that plain human. Biting her own thumb in rage, the shadowy young girl swears that she will never forgive the meddlesome classmate. Sitting isolated in the classroom, she is surprised by the sudden arrival of some bad-looking students. The group of delinquents approaches, praising her beauty and proposing a new friendship right there. Staring at the criminals, Nanju finally finds the perfect opportunity to put her plan into action. Exhibiting a macabre smile on her face, the student reveals her own name, sealing the evil pact. Later, Nanju corners Seo in an isolated alley while the victim cries without understanding the persecution. Laughing in a hysterical and cruel way, the blonde reveals that the newcomer has been acting like she's all that lately. With a threatening look, the aggressor accuses the girl of hitting on the boys, even being so ugly. The gang of delinquents finds amusement in the humiliation, but a desperate scream calls for the victim in the alley. Amamiya appears, running, rushed in the middle of the dark lane, interrupting the cowardly attack of the group. Panning from the run, the boy explains that he came looking for her since the friend didn't show up at the meeting point. He soon recognizes the popular girl standing there and questions, scared, what she is doing with those outcasts. Without giving a chance to defend, one of the criminals points his finger, ordering the nerd to also approach. On the dirty floor, the main character is beaten mercilessly while the ex-delinquent narrates her own fall. The aggressor smiles, sadistic, celebrating the beating of the loser while Nanju reflects on her only certainty. With empty and shadowy look, the blonde blames Seiyu silently for all that misfortune in their lives. The nerd girl cries cringed while the enemy states that everything would be different without that intrusion. Nanju imagines a perfect scenario where she and the main character would be together and happy if the newcomer vanished. With her mind dominated by the obsession, she decrees that the boy belongs only to her and she will not tolerate pests. Wrapped by the purple energy of the parasite, the girl states that she will also not let the redhead alien steal him. Lying comfortably on the bed in the boy's house, the young girl observes the meteor shower crossing the dark sky. In an isolated location, a heavy boot crushes violently the head of a fallen alien monstrosity. The galactic policewoman sighs, irritated, while she steps on the monster, complaining that many pieces of trash are invading Earth. Adjusting her glasses, the supervisor grumbles that dealing with all those space insects is giving a lot of work. Suddenly, a bright glow crosses the dark firmament, grabbing the lethal agent's total attention. Smiling excited at the challenge, the policewoman decrees that a really strong threat just entered the planet. With the arrival of the weekend, Amamiya wakes up with eyes closed, celebrating the well-deserved time off in his own house. Observing the soft morning light, the student confesses that he thought he would finally manage to rest in peace. However, the dream turns into a nightmare upon noticing that the two brazen girls are crushing him in the same bed. Waking up with a stressed jump, the young man expels the intruders, demanding to know how they ended up there. Rubbing her eyes sleepy, the blonde invents the excuse that she was very scared of sleeping alone on the couch. Totally clueless, the redhead warrior laughs, stating that she just joined because the pair was already in bed. Shaking the boy with force, the space combatant demands that he wake up immediately to prepare the breakfast. Surprising the exhausted owner of the house, Nanja rises willing and offers to cook the morning meal. Brimming with kindness, the blonde argues that paying with food is the least since she is living there for free. In little time, the skillful young girl serves a table full of beautiful and delicious dishes for the group. With water in her mouth, Shiho vibrates a lot while the boy praises the surprising culinary abilities of the guest. A sad memory of the abusive father rises fast, but Nanja disguises it, saying that she only cooks since she was a child. The alien warrior attacks the meal with ferocity, praising the incredible flavor of that earth food. Taking a nice bite, the boy approves of the seasoning, reflecting on how long it was since he ate something homemade like that. The cook smiles, satisfied with the praises, until the main character notices a very important detail on the table. Staring at the enormous quantity of fried food, he asks immediately where she got so many expensive ingredients. The narrative cuts to the fridge of the house, which was completely emptied during the preparation of the banquet. Holding only a lone sprig of green onion, the student goes pale upon noticing the financial disaster. Desperate, he does the math, lamenting that his father's allowance will still take days to reach the account. Accepting the total loss, the young man invites the redhead partner to go to the market as soon as they finish eating. Maintaining a helpful posture, the ex-delinquent offers to accompany the pair and help with the house expenses. The host thanks, stuttering, but soon finds strange the attitude, suddenly docile and collaborative, of the old villain. Drinking her drink calmly, the blonde celebrates mentally for managing to sleep and eat right next to her target. Savoring the tea with her eyes closed, the human feels that all her biggest desires are turning into reality. But the shadowy voice of the parasite echoes, furious, in her mind, demanding that they steal the power soon before the Galactic Union. The entity promises to help eliminate the alien protector, so that Nanju can have the boy only for her. Some time later, the trio of students finally arrives at the city supermarket to restock the supplies. Running through the full aisles, the warrior from Mishia's is totally fascinated by the terrestrial products. But concentrated on the economy, the main character checks the shopping list, looking to take advantage of all the store's promotions. Totally clueless, the redhead tries to bite a closed food package, forcing the boy to give a scolding. The distraction is cut by a sudden announcement on the market's loudspeakers, grabbing the attention of the customers in there. The announcer announces a lightning offer of 30 minutes, making the boy go into despair so as not to miss the chance. Without time to lose, Amamiya bolts, running desperate, through the middle of the crowd, leaving the girls behind, confused. Trying to keep up with the human's pace, the space traveler ends up being pushed with force by a rushed customer. Irritated by the lack of manners, the heroine transforms her hand into a lethal claw, ready to attack the rude earthling. Hoshizora's serious alert echoes in her mind, remembering the absolute rule of not hurting anyone without being sure. Holding back her own rage, the warrior dissipates the brutal magic, but starts feeling a very strong dizziness suddenly. Losing all the body strength instantly, the alien collapses, passed out right in the middle of the busy aisle. In the middle of the agitated crowd, Amamiya looks back, completely worried, and calls for the blonde girl. Holding the passed-out alien, Nanju asks in a calculating way if they are friends, and the redhead confirms, sort of groggy, without understanding the motive. Taking advantage of the vulnerability, the host climbs on top of the fallen opponent and plans to inject her own evil energy to assume total control. The parasite remembers, frustrated of the last violent encounter between the two, where she ended up taking a humiliating beating from the flaming hero. But observing the totally low guard of the warrior, the delinquent prepares to land the perfect strike without a chance of defense. With her face dangerously close, the blonde advances while the traveler mumbles the friend's name, totally defenseless. Without losing time, the villain seals a deep kiss on the warrior and starts to transfer her corrupted essence directly into the other's body. The shadowy energy invades the alien system, making her widen her eyes in pure shock upon noticing the girl's true intention. The alien's body yields for real and she passes out completely, while the parasite recoils, satisfied, announcing that the service is concluded. Sustaining the weight of the unconscious girl, the host hears the malign entity celebrate the absolute success of that sneaky plan. Far from there, the boy sighs, relieved, carrying a gigantic pile of lunchboxes in his arms through the market aisle. All happy with the bargain he managed to get, the student walks skipping and celebrating the wonderful economy of the day. He calculates that food will last several days, but soon stops, confused, upon finding the blonde standing alone in the middle of the store. Holding the weight of the groceries, the protagonist questions the motive for his classmate to be standing alone there and looks for the whereabouts of the redhead partner. Feigning despair, the liar points far away, inventing that the alien felt a tasty smell and ran away like a crazy person. The boy goes into total panic with the absurd news, and the parasite suggests rapidly that they look for the missing one together. The search leads the human to the dark and silent stockroom of the supermarket, where he peeps, suspicious, trying to find some sign. Walking slowly between the full shelves, the boy questions if his hungry partner really hid in that isolated place. While he continues calling for the redhead in an innocent way, dozens of shadowy tentacles start to sprout silently right behind him. Without managing to react, the student is captured and completely immobilized by the evil bindings, while the villain's voice echoes, celebrating the victory. Revealing her corrupted aura, Nanju controls the dark wires with mastery and warns that the moment so awaited finally arrived. Exhibiting a sadistic smile and glowing eyes, the host decrees with sickly possessiveness that now the human belongs entirely to her. In a park far from there, the noise of a beer can being opened breaks the silence of the calm night. The space supervisor wears gym clothes and takes a nice gulp of the cold drink, enjoying the time off. Sitting comfortably on the bench, the policewoman sighs, satisfied, praising how drinking in the open air on the weekend is wonderful. She reflects on the fatigue of the terrestrial work, but is interrupted suddenly by a threatening voice calling her name in the dark. A mysterious woman with white hair appears, walking, criticizing the lazy life the rebel agent is leading on that planet. The space policewoman looks over her shoulder and soon puts the pieces together, noticing that presence was the unwanted visitor of the previous night. Staring at the intruder called Pommel, the supervisor hears the newcomer demand answers about the motive for having ignored the superior extermination orders. Exhibiting furious red eyes, the new arrival questions in an aggressive tone if living with Earthlings managed to melt the official's brain. Analyzing the betrayal, the invader in white decrees that she will need to annihilate the entire Earth and eliminate the Rebo colleague from the way. Returning to the dark stockroom, the main character moans from pain, complaining mentally that the shadowy bindings are suffocating him without mercy. With peripheral vision, the boy tries to understand if all that monstrous madness is really the work of the delinquent human. Staring at the macabre smile of the girl in the darkness, he is left in shock, remembering that the parasite had already been kicked out of her body. Just then, an old memory from childhood invades the human's mind, showing the little blonde playing hide and seek with a sweet smile. In the memory, the little girl finds his hideout in a cardboard box, exuding a pure and innocent joy from that time. The proud little girl claimed to know every step of the friend, proving how she used to be an incredibly radiant child. Time advanced to high school, where the popular student always greeted him in a very warm way through the school hallways. The boy remembers that she was extremely curious and friendly, always striking up conversation about his trips to the library. The happy image contrasts violently with the shadowy phase, where she started to ignore him, raising the painful doubt about what caused that change. Trapped and cornered in the present, the student analyzes the desperate situation, considering a sad possibility about the villain. He admits mentally that maybe he closed his eyes to reality, seeing only the good version that he wanted to be real. The protagonist laments never having tried to discover the real motive for that transformation, settling for the excuse that she just got worse. Consumed by guilt, he understands that he ignored the pain of the old friend while he was surrounded by valuable new companions. The sight of the delinquent left alone and injured on the school hallway floor weighs deeply on the hero's conscience. The boy concludes with sadness that, if he had extended his hand before, she never would have been corrupted by that freak again. With a look loaded with pure remorse, the human asks for sincere apologies for the negligence that destroyed the old classmate's life. The plea for forgiveness breaks the sadistic posture of the parasite, making her hesitate, completely confused by the empathic attitude of the target. Suddenly, the possessed girl brings her hands to her head, letting out a groan of agony, while a sharp pain hits her mind. The malign aura oscillates aggressively and the villain widens her eyes, startled, feeling an immeasurable power awakening around her. Taking advantage of the enemy's distraction, the boy tries to break free, but freezes, feeling a very oppressive energy, and discarding it, being the space policewoman. Far from the market, Pommel releases a scary blue aura, proving to be an incredibly superior threat that just invaded the planet. Condensing destructive magic in her hands, the new enemy decrees that the disobedience will cost the rebel supervisor's special title. Without demonstrating fear, Leet crushes the empty can, exuding total contempt for the galactic position that oppressed her so much. Exuding contained fury under the light of the lamppost, the terrestrial official raises her hand, preparing a very clear response for the rival. Using the delicacy of humans, the official sticks up her middle finger and sends the intruder to hell, declaring her freedom. The white-haired alien blinks totally confused, without managing to translate the obscene gesture of Earth's culture. Ignoring the language barrier, the invader concludes that the rebel chose death instead of absolute submission. Firing a colossal column of blue energy, the executor sentences the immediate annihilation of the ex-colleague right in the middle of the square. Bathed by the lethal light of the fulminant attack, the supervisor just lowers her head, awaiting the devastating impact of the enemy magic. A brutal explosion consumes the scenario, while Pommelhot recognizes the level of strength that the opponent used to have in the past. Justifying the rushed attack, the alien states that she needed to erase the traitor before she used her temporal reversal magic. But in an incredibly fast teleportation, Leet emerges right behind the executor and lands a powerful punch, catching the enemy by surprise. The aggressor staggers, stunned, feeling the blow, completely incredulous that the rebel survived the annihilating shot. Recovering the hostile posture, the invader invokes more cosmic electricity, warning that the combat just got serious. The executor advances with a frontal blast, but the supervisor slides with ease, mocking the slowness of the blow. Completely humiliated by the other's agility, Pommel lets out a grunt of frustration upon missing more mortal investments. Maintaining a safe distance, the invader questions, irritated, what is the rebels' true plan, dodging in that way. Brimming with confidence, the galactic policewoman exalts her own power to rewind time in short intervals to create perfect openings. The assassin points her finger, sentencing that tricks don't matter, since the difference in magical reserve between them is an absolute abyss. Promising to wipe the smile off the rival's face, the executor is interrupted suddenly by a mocking laugh from the terrestrial supervisor. Laughing at the enemy's nervousness, Leet points out how pathetic it is to see the high command panicked with the chance of losing the primordial energy. Invoking her glowing emerald magic, the defender warns clearly that any effort of the Union there is totally useless. The answer cuts to the view of the redhead heroine protecting the human, revealing that the survivor from Mishia is the true ace up the sleeve. The realization finally hits the invader and she widens her eyes, deducing, scared, that it was the redhead who obliterated the old galactic emissary. Haired One states that the Union only travels between star systems because it stole the advanced technology of planet Mishia. Right after that, the executor questions what would happen if they simply blew up the entire planet Earth. She predicts that the debris would fly through the universe and that the target would flee in the middle of the chaos, escaping just like the last time. Leet agrees, thoughtful, admitting that tracking and chasing someone running through space would be a very boring job. With that, the supervisor understands why she was feeling another mysterious presence near the primordial energy. Pommel decides that they need to eliminate the alien protector first, while the policewoman states that the executor will be the next. Far from there, Amamiya continues completely trapped in a dark cocoon in the middle of the closed stockroom of the supermarket. The possessed leader celebrates the victory, guaranteeing that the boy will be all hers as soon as they finish that service. Planning to throw the human into space, the villain is interrupted suddenly by a metallic noise echoing in the warehouse. Very irritated at the intrusion, Nanju turns her face, abruptly demanding to know who dares to bother her moment. The two aliens invade the warehouse, destroying the door, and the white-haired one decrees that the blonde definitely isn't from Misha. Feeling the crushing energy from before, the parasite shakes with dread and stammers the name of the executor Pommelhot with respect. Pommel mocks the creature's difficulty in forming a whole sentence and decides to check what type of primitive beast that is. Without any effort, the invader in white grabs the possessed girl by the collar to analyze the monster up close. Staring at the prey, she deduces rapidly that it deals with a soft-bodied parasite species specialized in mental manipulation. The executor exposes the creature, stating that it is a level 1 criminal, finding it pathetic that it uses any human to survive. Maintaining the immobilized prey, the woman with white hair states that she can feel the primordial power coming from inside the cocoon. Observing the shadowy prison floating, the space assassin questions, ironically, if that work was the parasite's job. With her eye glowing scarily, Pommel demands to know what the creature's goal was, leaving Nanju paralyzed with panic. Dropping the blonde on the floor, the invader decrees that any genius plan they had ends at the moment she arrives. Exhibiting a lethal smile, the cosmic assassin even thanks the monster for having tied the target so well, facilitating the extermination. The possessed human widens her eyes and mumbles, confused trying to process the word. Extermination, said by the superior official. The cosmic assassin invokes a devastating blue magic in her own hands, making the girl notice that she will kill Amamiya. Desperate, Nanju asks if she doesn't intend to steal the strength for herself, but the monster warns that disobeying is certain death. A Pommelot fires a brutal annihilation beam against the shadowy prison, while the blonde screams, charging for the promise of having the boy. The monster decrees that it is too late to save him, alerting that the executor will kill them too if they try to fight against her. Observing the lethal light cross the warehouse, the young girl laments that the student's power and life will be totally wasted there. The memory of the boy's gentle smile invades the human's mind, bringing the harsh reality that he will die in seconds. Contrasting the alien dominance, the girl forces her own body to move, swearing that she will never allow a tragedy like that. Breaking the mental control, Nanju warns that she let the creature do what it wanted before, but now she is the one who rules her own body. The blonde advances against the magical beam, screaming that she won't accept that farce while the attack approaches the cocoon. Trapped in the darkness, Amamiya widens his eyes, stunned upon listening to the voice of the old classmate denying that tragic end. In an act of pure courage, the human steps in front of the cosmic explosion, surprising totally the invader in white. Hearing the imminent sacrifice from outside, the student clenches his fists with extreme fury inside the alien prison. Opening his arms like a shield, Nanju throws herself in front of the cosmic explosion, demanding it shouts for the attack to stop. The scenario changes suddenly to a freezing cold storage chamber, where a mysterious hand tries to reach a shelf. A colorful popsicle slips and hits Shiho's head squarely, making the girl let out a moan of pain upon waking up. Thrown on the floor lined with frozen candies, the heroine shakes from cold, trying to process the freezing temperature of the environment. The red-head space warrior sits on the floor of the cold room, looking at the heavy metal doors while asking where she ended up. Rubbing her own head, bruised by the impact, the alien grumbles, holding the ice cream that woke her up from the blackout. Just then, a shadowy flash invades her mind, showing the silhouette of the ex-delinquent exuding a dangerous purple aura. Fallen on the cold floor, the cosmic combatant finally remembers that bizarre moment where the fake friend kissed her at the market. The memory shows Nanju dragging her past, out body into the freezer, stating that she didn't need to kill her. Putting the pieces of that dirty trap together, the raidhead jumps, indignant, upon concluding that the human turned into a monster again. The heroine of Michia's eyes widen in pure shock, while she tries to understand from when the enemy recovered the powers. The alien warrior's mind goes over the liar's posture, repeating the doubt of when the possession actually restarted. The image of the blonde handing over the chocolate bar at the hospital comes back strong, showing how the theater started well before. The memory of the villain wrapped in the towel after the shower confirms the suspicions, making the alien understand all the manipulation. Without understanding the enemy's plan, the raidhead sits on the packages, asking herself the motive for the parasite not having taken the chance to kill her. The extreme cold attacks the space traveler's nose, forcing her to sneeze powerfully, generating a spark of magical fire. Hugging her own legs, the girl complains of the low temperature and deduces that she was left with zero energy to warm herself up. Looking at the shelves and the floor, the heroine finally pays attention to the absurd quantity of frozen candies stored there. Accepting the only available option, the warrior from Mishia opens the popsicle, deciding that that food will have to serve as a battery. With eyes shining with happiness, she takes a gigantic bite of the frozen candy, feeling the sugar recharge her forces. Outside the cold room, a market employee pushes a load cart, relieved for that being the last job. The worker unlocks the heavy door of the freezer, commenting to himself that the ice cream stock will last for a long time. The man flings open the metal entrance, and the hallway light illuminates the figure of the alien sitting right in the middle of the freezing room. The raidhead is caught with her cheeks full of food, while the stock clerk lets out a scream of pure terror before the invader. The worker falls sitting on the floor scared, while the girl jumps, startled by the sudden shout. Celebrating her luck, the heroine bolts, warning that she was going to break the wall with brute force, but preferred to save magic. Passing like a bolt by the fallen worker, the traveler announces that she recharged the batteries and needs to act fast. Focused on the goal of saving the prodigy, the combatant concludes with anger that the blonde never gave up on the boy's power. The painful memory of the friendship request returns, making the warrior accept that all that kindness was a nasty farce. Back at the dark warehouse, Nanju keeps her arms open, blocking the cocoon, while shouting for the platinum-haired one to stop the attack. Without demonstrating compassion, the assassin hits the human squarely with the energy ray, tearing a shrill scream of agony from her. The cosmic impact crushes the body of the possessed young girl without mercy, making the girl moan from pain while the supervisor just observes. The blue explosion consumes almost everything around, demonstrating the absurd level of lethal strength that the Galactic Union sent to Earth. Smoking from the damage of the attack, the ex-delinquent collapses on the concrete floor, completely finished, mumbling the name of the target trapped. Miraculously, a bluish magical protection dome appears out of nowhere around the fallen girl, surprising totally the celestial invaders. The shadowy cocoon starts to crack, releasing intense rays, proving that the student's hidden power awakened to defend the human. Ignoring the sudden protection, the platinum-haired executor just cleans her hands, warning that she neutralized the threat and saved the universe from danger. Just then, the human rises with a jump and bolts, screaming in fury, taking the white-haired assassin totally by surprise. Crying from pain and hatred, the young girl advances while the parasite itself screams, desperate in her mind, without managing to dominate the host body. The monster concludes, terrified that it never saw so much resistance before, and Nanju runs, blind from rage, promising to kill the cosmic enemy. Pommelhot points her glowing finger, decreeing the elimination of the criminal and her host. The shadowy parasite despairs completely upon seeing the imminent attack. Nanju dodges the energy beam in the last second, noticing that the attack would have pierced her body. The executor observes coldly, mocking the girl crawled out of the way like a snake. Preparing more blue magic, the invader warns that resistance is just a waste of time. In a fulminant shot, the invader guarantees that trying to face her is already the same as being dead. A cloud of dust rises with the violent impact of the attack on the warehouse floor. Fallen on the floor, the blonde lifts her gaze, totally surprised by not having been hit. Shiho appears holding the girl in her arms, calling her name sort of clumsily. Staring at the scene, Pommelhot questions, irritated, how long that Mitch's survivor had been lying. Exuding authority, the woman introduces herself as executor of the Union and points out the blonde as a criminal. Maintaining the threatening pose, the platinum-haired one focuses her target directly on the possessed girl. The official orders for the heroine to retreat immediately, threatening to kill her along if she continues in the way. Without retreating a centimeter, Shio screams that she will never forgive her if she touches a finger on her friend. Listening to that fervent defense, Nanju mumbles the savior's name, totally moved. The executor finds amusement in the word friendship, mocking that the redhead only traveled there after power. Just then, the black parasite detaches itself from the blonde's body, crawling far away, warning that it already extracted the energy. Exhibiting a confident smile, the warrior questions the monster's statement with an ironic tone. Invoking intense flames on her arm, she cuts the assassin's bureaucratic speech about principles and surrender. Pommelhot freezes in the middle of the sentence, completely caught by surprise by the sudden onslaught. Advancing like a flaming bolt, the alien reinforces and shouts that the human is her friend. The invader dodges the acrobatic kick, alerting that the monster and the host are already in an irreversible stage. Taking advantage of the opening in the movement, the platinum-haired one counters, landing a heavy blow on the redhead warrior. Skidding through the dirty floor, the heroine hears the rival decree that the only exit now is to obliterate the girl along. Fallen in the warehouse, the combatant from Misha tries to argue, desperate against that cruel death sentence. Cold and calculating, the official raises her glowing hand, remembering that she had already given a clear warning. Without demonstrating mercy, the executor aims her lethal magic, ready to annihilate both of them at once. But the arrogant expression of the assassin changes to pure shock upon feeling that the primordial energy still pulses. Confirming the theory, the redhead warrior opens a mischievous smile, mocking the other's confidence. The invader in white turns her body abruptly, noticing, terrified that her previous attack didn't pierce the target. A purple glow explodes monumentally in the warehouse, tearing through the cocoon of darkness with brute force. The two girls cover their faces against the blinding light, while the blonde mumbles the boy's name, relieved. Breaking the shadowy bindings, the human emerges wrapped in an absurd quantity of brilliant cosmic energy. The student lands heavily on the concrete floor, exuding and crushing primordial power through the environment. Despite the imposing release, the young man moans in pain, feeling that his muscles are completely locked. Pressed by the imminent danger, the boy understands that he needs to flee from there as fast as possible to survive. Cutting the tension, the platinum-haired executor advances, flying with a lethal beam, aiming mercilessly at the girls. Facing imminent death, the ex-delinquent lets out a shrill scream of panic without having anywhere to run. An emerald detonation sweeps the area in a deafening impact, throwing debris everywhere. The assassin lands gracefully, insulting the redhead warrior for insisting on such useless acts. The smoke lowers, revealing that the destructive magic was totally blocked before reaching the victims. With a look filled with blind fury, the student defends his friend, screaming that she is not a primitive creature. Using his own brute strength, the human manages to repel the cosmic attack, deflecting the energy with violence. The main character's eyes glow intensely in a golden tone, proving that he assumed control of the situation. Wrapped in a mystical aura, Amamiya asks himself if he is still trapped, remembering having been hit by light. Staring at his own hands, he finds the sensation strange, but notes that he finally manages to move with freedom. The lethal glow grabs his attention and he notices immediately that Nanju is running a mortal risk. Taken by the desperate situation, the hero screams for Nanju to hang on. With a shadowy expression, Shiho questions why everyone keeps trying to take what is hers, remembering that first they took her planet, and now they want the boy. Surprised by the audacity, the platinum-haired executor retorts, irritated, finding it an absurdity the girl speaking of the Earthling's power as if she were the owner of it. The assassin warns that the redhead isn't the only one after that strength, highlighting that as soon as the human matures, the situation will get worse. Explaining the threat, Pomelhot states that everyone will try to claim that power for themselves, exactly like that wanted criminal who was hidden in the Earthling girl. The official alerts that if any space trash gets their hands on that energy, the entire universe will be plunged into an unprecedented disaster again. For the platinum-haired one, once was already more than enough. Right then, she decrees that they will act for galactic peace. Extending her hand with authority, the invader sentences that the shadowy energy must be erased forever, that being the absolute law. She concludes by saying that that is a direct order from the Galactic Union. Without giving a damn about the bureaucratic speech, the warrior from Michi retorts, irritated, questioning what all that has to do with her. Pomelhot blinks, totally confused by the rebel response, asking what the girl just said. Overflowing fury, the heroine shouts that she doesn't even have a place in that universe anymore, so it makes no sense to care about that so-called galactic peace. The space assassin understands the rancor and mocks, deducing that she is talking about her home planet called Mishia. Exhibiting a cynical smile, the platinum-haired one notices that the survivor already knew that the Union was the one responsible for the destruction of that world. Maintaining the provocative tone, the executor states that being the case, the redhead should have accepted their offer from the beginning. The official clenches her fists, declaring that the destruction of Mishia was something that the people themselves provoked, and tries to continue the phrase. But the redhead bolts through the air, completely indignant, yelling how the enemy has the courage to say such an absurdity. Just then, a painful memory arises, showing the little survivor cringed, remembering she was abandoned by her own parents. The memory focuses on the wicked children humiliating her, proving that the place was also full of terrible people. However, the gentle smile of her teacher comforts her, making the girl admit that all the people she cared about lived there. Advancing with her arm in flames, the heroine attacks, furious, yelling that that was her only and precious home. The violent blow collides with the platinum-haired one's defense, while the warrior demands that the assassin doesn't treat her loss as if it weren't anything. Blocking the attack without difficulty, the executor activates her own petrification on her arm. The woman in white explains that high-level technique resonates with the dimensional waves of Michia's core, being an incredibly strong power. Holding a stone shard, the invader reveals that the idea was to combine that with the Union's navigation technology. In that way, they would build a civilization capable of crossing galaxies freely, eliminating the need for spaceships forever. Crushing the stone in her hand, she justifies that is why they proposed the delivery of the core peacefully, but since they were refused, they didn't have another choice. The redhead alien's eyes overflow pure hatred while she listens to the cruel explanation. The assassin continues, belittling Michia's technology. And with total coldness, the official reports that they didn't have use for a useless race, so they simply decimated the population and stole the core by force. Thanks to that core, the Union expanded its space reach, charging absurd amounts from other races, proving that the girl's planet didn't vanish by chance. Brimming with a cruel smile, the platinum-haired one decrees that the redhead's civilization contributed a lot to the universe by being completely erased. The stones shatter under the bare feet of the heroine, while the hatred boils in her veins. The face of the warrior from Mishia is taken over by an uncontrollable murderous fury. The cosmic assassin turns her body with boredom, reinforcing that if they had accepted the offer from the start, the disaster would be smaller. In a sadistic tone, the invader concludes that the residents would have at least kept their own pathetic lives. Totally consumed by rage, the combatant advances in a very fast, flaming impulse. The executor widens her eyes, surprised, noticing that the adversary's speed increased absurdly suddenly. With a shrill war cry, the redhead alien pours all her rancor into the lethal attack. Dealing frenetic blows, the heroine mocks the word coffer, yelling how they plan to destroy the planet since the beginning. Oppressed by the relentless offensive, the official defends herself and warns that she already finished playing with that. The warrior lands a flying kick covered in fire, declaring that she will never accept losing anyone in life again. Cutting the investment, the platinum-haired assassin counters with a heavy blow, guaranteeing that she won't let the girl do what she wants. The invader's eye glows in a scary tone, indicating she will use her maximum strength. With an agile movement, Pommelhot conjures an electric whip of pure lethal energy. The shadowy blow hits the redhead squarely, whipping her body violently against the broken floor. Fallen in the rubble, the combatant from Mishia moans in pain, suffering the consequences of the overwhelming blow. Right behind, the earthling also lets out a moan, trying to recover from the extreme weakness. The boy takes his hand to his head, deducing that the malaise is a side effect of having shared so much power. He complains about the blurred vision. Walking up to the fallen prey, the platinum-haired executor swears at her, calling her filthy insect with total contempt. The assassin's body glows with cosmic magic while she sentences that she should have erased all the survivors. The official decrees the end of the last mission. Noticing the imminent execution, Amamiya screams, desperate, telling his partner to take care of the lethal attack. Ignoring her own exhaustion, the student advances, running, to try to prevent the tragedy in any way. But before the villain attacks, several shadowy tentacles sprout from nowhere and imprison her body with violence. Caught by surprise by the trap, the woman with white hair stammers, confused without understanding what that is. The hero supports the blonde's body while noticing the friend is using the shadowy energy that the parasite left behind. Totally perplexed, the platinum-haired one notices that the human force that alien power residue. Nanju screams the heroine's name. Taking advantage of the perfect distraction, the redhead warrior rests her hands on the floor, ordering the rival not to underestimate Mishia's technology. The executor breaks the obscure bindings easily, mocking that useless tricks cannot trap her for long. Exhibiting a malicious smile in the shadows, the cosmic heroine promises to show how scary that power can be for real. The official freezes in place, completely stunned upon feeling a brutal energy emanating from the floor. Positioned imposingly right behind the assassin, the redhead warrior commands that the punishment descend from the skies. Overflowing pure flaming energy, Shiho invokes the great legacy of Micha with a totally determined look. A meteor of cosmic fire falls mercilessly toward the invader, illuminating the warehouse with destruction. The scene cuts to the shadowy council, where one of the leaders charges, irritated, about why they haven't received reports from Leet about the target's annihilation. The counselor, accompanied by a bird, explains that they sent transmissions in high speed, but the official simply ignored them. Intrigued by the silence, the tentacle monster ponders if that bizarre planet doesn't hide some terrifying secret weapon. But the executor's mind had already deduced in the past that the absence of response was a clear sign of high treason. Crossing her arms in the council, the platinum-haired one decrees that the rebel colleague suffered some drastic change, being the only logical explanation. The bizarre multi-eyed being agrees immediately, guaranteeing that a primitive world would never have technology to defend itself. With her left eye glowing strong, Pommelhot promises to travel personally to execute the rebel official and the earthling together. Returning to the combat in the present, the assassin raises her face and stares at the colossal, incandescent rock about to crush her. Sweating cold before imminent death, the invader mumbles, stunned upon feeling the magnitude of that extremely powerful attack. The devastating impact collides with the ground, causing an apocalyptic explosion that sweeps the area in a flash of incalculable, brute force. The devastating impact melts the concrete floor, forming an immense crater, while the group of heroes watches the dust settle. The student covers his face, protecting himself from the strong wind generated by the absurd blow, letting out an exclamation of pure shock. Shio keeps her hands firm, guiding the rest of her devastating power. The impact of the flaming meteor swallows the entire building in a colossal explosion. Little by little, the thick smoke starts to lower, revealing the completely destroyed scenario. From inside a circle of protective fire, Amamiya asks, panting, if they finally manage to win. The warrior from Micha exits from behind the rubble, breathing deep after the lethal attack. She confirms, relieved that apparently the threat was eliminated. Completely exhausted, the boy sighs, more tranquil, deducing that now they are safe. But the relief lasts little and he collapses to his knees on the broken floor without strength. Scared at the fall, the heroine runs to her partner, ordering him to take a lot of care. The hero coughs a scary quantity of blood, dirtying his own body. Kneeling next to him, the redhead explains that sharing that power consecutive times without being awakened was a lethal absurdity. Just then, a moan of pain grabs the pair's attention in the middle of the dust. Amamiya calls for his friend, seeing that she is finally recovering consciousness on the floor. Suddenly, the blonde grabs her own head and lets out an ear-piercing scream of pure agony. Caught by surprise, the student is left shocked, feeling a bizarre aura emanating from his classmate. The shadowy energy whips uncontrolled through the air while the boy asks if that is the power of the parasite. Echoing straight from the dimensional portal, the creature cries, complaining that it was left behind in the subspace. The warrior from Misha clarifies that the monster left part of its own strength inside the girl upon exiting. She remembers that the ex-delinquent forced her own body to the limit to use that bizarre alien magic in the fall. The obscure force continues twisting violently without any control and tearing the floor. The combatant explains firmly that the body of a normal human would never manage to support so much cosmic energy. Pulling one of the black threads, the heroine deduces that during the possession the monster maintained a vital balance in the human. But since now she returned to being just a regular civilian, that magic remnant is destroying her from the inside out. The alien gives a serious warning, guaranteeing that if that continues, the young girl will explode from the inside out. Totally horrified at the fatal warning, the student mumbles, trying to process the danger. Without knowing how to react, the hero swallows hard, staring at the desperate situation. Seeing his friend scream in continuous pain, the hero decrees that they cannot abandon her like that and begs for a way out. Holding the threads with strength, the Misha partner reveals that there does exist a method to contain that lethal lack of control. Desperate for the answer, the earthling grabs the redhead's shoulders, demanding to know what needs to be done immediately. Caught by surprise at the abrupt attitude, she turns her face, hesitating a lot to tell the plan. Recovering her breath, Amamiya questions if his own healing power would manage to resolve the girl's problem. The hero agrees, irritated, and tells him to focus on his own critical state before trying any madness. She warns, furious, that if he transfers more vital energy, in that way he will end up dying for real. Ignoring the extreme danger, the boy advances, running in the direction of his friend, who continues agonizing on the floor. In the middle of the path, one of the tentacles hits the human's chest with a lot of violence. Seeing the brutal attack, the cosmic partner screams his name in complete despair. Even injured, the student manages to approach and holds the human's face with total firmness. Staring at the panic-filled eyes of the young girl, he calls her name, trying to transmit a little bit of calm. The hero remembers the shadowy time in which the girl got lost in criminality and pushed everyone away. The memory changes to the peaceful moment in which she used to be gentle in the past. He recognizes that the blonde always paid attention to him even when no one else cared about his existence. Guilty for his own failures, the boy asks himself if their destiny would be different in case he had been more present. In an act of absolute sacrifice, the student kisses the human, transferring his primordial energy while asking for forgiveness mentally. The intimate contact makes the golden light flow with strength, crushing the obscure aura right then and there. Feeling the pain vanish from the body, Nanju closes her eyes, finally finding peace in the middle of all that chaos. The initial shock passes, and the blonde focuses on the classmate's face, demonstrating a genuine surprise at his attitude. Totally without energies after the rescue, the hero collapses backward, losing consciousness right then. The warrior from Micha runs, desperate, through the rubble, screaming for the fallen partner. The boy's body hits the broken concrete heavily, and without any movement. While the ex-delinquent observes, stunned, the redhead arrives, crying next to the passed-out student. The scenario changes drastically to a dark forest, where faltering steps crush the tall grass. The platinum-haired assassin limps through the isolated terrain, clicking her tongue from pure frustration with the defeat. Missing an entire arm, the invader admits with rage that she needed to sacrifice the limb to not be killed by the meteor. Squeezing the ugly injury, the official deduces that if she spends magic regenerating the arm, she won't manage to return to the Union. Suddenly, a gruesome and distorted voice calls the executor's name directly from her back. Pomelot freezes right then, trying to recognize the owner of that familiar presence. The little shadowy parasite emerges from a portal, floating, and introduces itself full of hesitation to the superior one. The woman questions, suspicious, how a being of that type managed to survive the lethal gravity of the abyss. Giving a nervous laugh, the creature explains that its flexible body helped and takes the opportunity to make a bizarre proposal. The villain is left static upon hearing the little monster ask if she wouldn't like to merge with it at that moment. Bleeding a lot, the platin-haired one glares at the parasite with disdain and asks if that useless worm thinks it can control her. The monster denies, desperate, swearing that it only wishes to be useful for the superior official before ending up dying there. The invader lowers her head, analyzing coldly her own pathetic situation and the lack of magic in the body. Accepting the unlikely alliance, the woman states that logically that sinister union isn't a bad idea. Holding the creature close to her face, the parasite vibrates with emotion without believing that she really accepted the deal. Exhibiting her true malign intention, the crawling being celebrates that finally it will steal that strong body. Without giving the slightest chance for the possession, the executor bites and rips a piece of the monster with violence. Swallowed alive by half, the creature goes into absolute panic without understanding the lethal betrayal in the last second. Finishing the grotesque meal, the villain wipes the corner of her mouth, exuding pure cruel satisfaction with the new power. The dark sinister grin, the now strengthened executor turns her gaze toward the distant forest, feeling the pulse of the primordial power still vibrating in the air. She can taste the residual energy of the parasite on her tongue, and it feels like pure, unadulterated strength coursing through her veins. Back at the ruins of the warehouse, Shio stands guard over the fallen Hoshizora and Nanju, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of returning threats. Her breathing is shallow and she knows she's running on fumes, but she refuses to leave her partner's side even for a second. Nanju stirs faintly, her fingers brushing against the cold concrete, and her eyes flutter open, disoriented and weak. Seeing that she's awake, Shiho lets out a sigh of relief, though her expression remains guarded, clearly wary of the residual shadowy energy still lingering around the blonde. Looks up, her eyes clearing as she remembers the sacrifice, and she mutters a quiet, shaky, "Thank you," toward the alien who had every reason to let her perish. Shiho just shakes her head, looking away to hide the flicker of genuine emotion in her eyes. For now, they are on the same side, and that's all that matters. Hoshizora remains unconscious, his chest rising and falling slowly, his connection to the primordial power flickering like a dying candle. The silence of the warehouse is interrupted by the distant, rhythmic thumping of Pomelhot's new, monstrously powered footsteps getting closer. The executor isn't just coming back, she is hunting, and she is far more dangerous than she was before the fusion. She moves through the forest like a blur of white and shadow, her single remaining arm crackling with a terrifying, jagged energy that looks nothing like the magic she used before. Every step she takes leaves the ground scorched, as if the earth itself can't handle the corrupted power she's now wielding. She reaches the clearing, her eyes locking onto the trio with a gaze that promises only total, utter annihilation. "You really thought you could hide from the inevitable." She rasps, her voice layered with the parasite's distorted, grating tone. Shio stands up, her legs shaking, and ignites her flames one last time, even if it feels like she's setting her own soul on fire. "We didn't hide." Shiho retorts, her voice defiant despite the exhaustion. "We were just waiting for you to walk right into our trap." The executor pauses, a flicker of genuine doubt crossing her face, before she lunges forward with the speed of a striking viper. As she closes the distance, the ground beneath the warehouse ruins starts to rumble, not from the combat, but from something rising from deep beneath the crust. Something massive and ancient, stirred by the sheer amount of primordial power unleashed in this small sector. Hoshizora's eyes snap open, not with human warmth, but with a blinding, golden light that forces both Shiho and Pomelhot to stumble back. Unleashing a flurry of attacks, the heroine mocks the idea of a special offer, screaming that they were planning to destroy the planet from the very beginning. Pressed by the relentless offensive, the officer defends herself and warns that she is officially done playing games. The warrior lands a fire-infused flying kick, declaring that she will never let anyone else be taken from her again. Cutting through the charge, the platinum-haired assassin counters with a heavy blow, insisting that she won't let the girl do whatever she wants. The invader's eye glows with a terrifying hue, a sign that she is about to unleash her maximum strength. With a swift movement, Pomelhot conjures an electric whip made of pure, lethal energy. The dark strike hits the redhead square in the chest, whipping her body violently against the broken ground. Collapsed in the rubble, the mission combatant groans in pain, suffering the consequences of the overwhelming blow. Right behind her, the earthling also lets out a moan, struggling to recover from extreme weakness. The young man clutches his head, realizing the sickness is just a side effect of sharing so much power. He complains about his blurred vision. Walking up to her fallen prey, the platinum executor calls her a filthy bug with total disdain. The assassin's body glows with cosmic magic as she states she should have wiped out all the survivors. The officer declares the end of the last mission. Realizing the execution is imminent, Amamiya screams in desperation, warning his partner to watch out for the lethal attack. Ignoring his own exhaustion, the student rushes forward to try and prevent the tragedy at all costs. But before the villain can strike, several dark tentacles sprout from nowhere, pinning her body down with raw force. Taken by surprise, the white-haired woman stammers in confusion, unable to process what is happening. The hero holds the blonde, realizing his friend is using the dark energy the parasite left behind. Completely perplexed, the platinum-haired woman realizes the human force that leftover alien power. Nanja screams the heroine's name. Taking advantage of the perfect distraction, the red-headed warrior plants her hands on the ground, telling her rival not to underestimate mission technology. The executor breaks the dark bonds easily, mocking the idea that useless tricks could hold her for long. With a wicked smile in the shadows, the cosmic heroine promises to show just how terrifying that power can truly be. The officer in white freezes, completely stunned as she feels a brutal energy radiating from the ground. Positioned imposingly behind the assassin, the red-headed warrior commands that punishment descend from the heavens. Overflowing with pure flaming energy, Shishio invokes the great legacy of Michia with a look of absolute determination. A meteor of cosmic fire falls mercilessly toward the invader, lighting up the warehouse with destruction. The scene cuts to the Dark Council, where one of the leaders angrily demands to know why they haven't received reports from late about the target's annihilation. The counselor, accompanied by a bird-like creature, explains that they sent high-speed transmissions, but the officer simply ignored them. Intrigued by the silence, the tentacled monster wonders if this bizarre planet is hiding some terrifying secret weapon. But the executor's mind had already deduced earlier that the lack of a response was a clear sign of high treason. Crossing her arms at the council, the platinum-haired woman decrees that the rebellious colleague must have undergone a drastic change. It is the only logical explanation. The bizarre, multi-eyed being agrees immediately, guaranteeing that a primitive world would never have the technology to defend itself. With her left eye glowing brightly, Pomelot promises to travel there personally to execute the traitorous officer and the Earthling together. Returning to the battle in the present, the assassin lifts her face and stares at the colossal, incandescent rock about to crush her. Breaking into a cold sweat before her impending doom, the invader murmurs in shock as she feels the magnitude of such an immensely powerful attack. The magic meteor collides with the ground, causing an apocalyptic explosion that sweeps the area in a flash of incalculable raw force. The devastating impact melts the concrete floor, forming a massive crater while the group of heroes watches the dust settle. The student covers his face to protect himself from the strong wind generated by the absurd blow, letting out an exclamation of pure shock. Shiho keeps her hand steady, guiding the remainder of her devastating power. The impact of the flaming meteor swallows the entire building in a colossal explosion. Gradually, the thick smoke begins to clear, revealing the completely destroyed landscape. From inside a protective ring of fire, Amamiya asks, gasping for air, if they finally manage to win. The mission warrior emerges from behind the debris, breathing deeply after the lethal attack. She confirms, relieved, that the threat has apparently been eliminated. Completely exhausted, the boy sighs, feeling calmer and concluding that they are safe now. But the relief is short-lived. He collapses to his knees on the broken ground, drained of all strength. Startled by his fall, the heroine runs to her partner, telling him to be very careful. The hero coughs up a terrifying amount of blood, staining his own body. Kneeling beside him, the redhead explains that sharing that much power repeatedly without being awakened was a lethal mistake. Just then, a groan of pain draws the duo's attention in the middle of the dust. Amamiya calls out to his friend, seeing that she is finally regaining consciousness on the ground. Suddenly, the blonde grabs her own head and lets out a deafening scream of pure agony. Taken by surprise, the student is shocked, feeling a bizarre aura emanating from his classmate. The dark energy whips uncontrollably through the air as the young man asks if that is the power of the parasite. Echoing straight from the dimensional portal, the creature cries out, complaining that it was left behind in subspace. The mission warrior clarifies that the monster left part of its own strength inside the girl when it left. She recalls that the former delinquent pushed her own body to the limit to use this alien magic during the fall. The dark force continues to twist violently without control, tearing up the ground. The fighter explains firmly that a normal human body could never handle that much cosmic energy. Pulling at one of the black threads, the heroine deduces that during the possession, the monster maintained a vital balance within the human. But since she has returned to being just an ordinary civilian, that remnant of magic is destroying her from the inside out. The alien issues a serious warning, guaranteeing that if this continues, the young woman will explode from within. Completely horrified by the fatal warning, the student murmurs, trying to process the danger. Not knowing how to react, the protagonist swallows hard, staring at the desperate situation. Seeing his friend screaming in constant pain, the hero decrees that they cannot just abandon her and begs for a way out. Holding the threads tight, the mission partner reveals that there is indeed a method to contain this lethal lack of control. Desperate for the answer, the Earthling grabs the redhead's shoulders, demanding to know what must be done immediately. Taken off guard by his sudden intensity, she turns her face away, hesitating to reveal the plan. Catching his breath, Amamiya asks if his own healing power could resolve the girl's problem. The heroine agrees, irritated, and tells him to focus on his own critical condition before trying anything crazy. She warns him furiously that if he transfers any more vital energy like that, he will end up passing away for real. Ignoring the extreme danger, the young man rushes toward his friend, who is still agonizing on the floor. In the middle of the path, one of the tentacles strikes the human's chest with great violence. Seeing the brutal attack, the cosmic partner screams his name in complete despair. Even while hurt, the student manages to get close and holds the human girl's face with total firmness. Staring into her panic-stricken eyes, he calls her name, trying to convey a bit of calm. The hero remembers the dark era when the girl was lost to a life of crime and pushed everyone away. The memory shifts to the peaceful moment when she used to be kind in the past. He recognizes that she always paid attention to him, even when no one else cared about his existence. Guilty over his own failures, the young man wonders if their fate would have been different had he been more present. In an act of absolute sacrifice, the student kisses the girl, transferring his primordial energy while mentally asking for forgiveness. The intimate contact makes golden light flow with force, crushing the dark aura instantly. Feeling the pain vanish from her body, Nanju closes her eyes, finally finding peace in the middle of all the chaos. The initial shock passes, and the blonde focuses on her classmate's face, showing genuine surprise at his gesture. Completely drained of energy after the rescue, the hero collapses backward, losing consciousness on the spot. The mission warrior runs desperately through the rubble, screaming for her fallen partner. The boy's body hits the broken concrete heavily, without any movement. As the former delinquent watches in shock, the redhead arrives, crying, beside the unconscious student. The scene changes drastically to a dark forest, where shaky footsteps press into the tall grass. The platinum-haired assassin limps through the isolated terrain, clicking her tongue in pure frustration at the defeat. Missing an entire arm, the invader admits with rage that she had to sacrifice the limb to avoid being killed by the meteor. Clutching the nasty wound, the officer realizes that if she spends magic regenerating the arm, she won't be able to return to the Union. Suddenly, a ghastly, distorted voice calls the executor's name from directly behind her. Pomelhot freezes instantly, trying to recognize the owner of that familiar presence. The small shadow parasite emerges from a portal, floating, and introduces itself, full of hesitation, to its superior. The woman asks, suspicious, how a being like that managed to survive the lethal gravity of the abyss. Letting out a nervous laugh, the creature explains that its flexible body helped, and it takes the opportunity to make a bizarre proposal. The villain stands motionless upon hearing the little monster ask if she wouldn't like to merge with it right then and there. Bleeding profusely, the platinum-haired woman glares at the parasite with disdain and asks if that useless worm thinks it can control her. The monster denies it desperately, swearing it only wants to be useful to its superior officer, before it ends up dying there. The invader bows her head, coldly analyzing her own pathetic situation and the lack of magic in her body. Accepting the unlikely alliance, the woman states that, logically, this sinister union is not a bad idea. Holding the creature close to her face, the parasite vibrates with emotion, unable to believe she actually accepted the deal. Showing its true evil intent, the crawling being celebrates that it will finally steal that strong body. Without giving it the slightest chance for possession, the executor sinks her teeth in and rips a piece off the monster with violence. Swallowed alive halfway, the creature falls into absolute panic, unable to understand the fatal betrayal in the final second. Finishing the grotesque meal, the villain wipes the corner of her mouth, radiating pure, cruel satisfaction with her new power.